Hi, and welcome to Punk with Toys. I think of where I'm at. This is Thursday with a friend, and today I want to say thank you to my guest Oz, who should be on one of his own shows. Uh, what is it again?
That's Toy Frenzy. They're good without me for the week.
Check out Toy Frenzy, even though it's opposing what I do. But there's only so many hours and days in a damn week.
There is.
And I'm like, I can't do more.
Right.
So anyway, how are you doing? And thank you again for joining.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing all right. Been overcoming some illness this last week, but it's finally kicking the curb. Finally, it's
I
getting
believe
out of
that's
here.
what you were saying on Saturday night, that the PowerCon bug was real. That
Oh yeah,
it wasn't just like in your head exhaustion. It was actually being a little under the weather.
yeah. Came back like the first 2 days coming back, like that Sunday. I'm kind of glad I wasn't at the convention on Sunday because I just got miserable as the day went on, and then Monday I was just done. Like I went to work Monday still, and I got worse throughout the day. Tuesday rolled in and I was like, I can't even talk anymore. Like my voice was gone from all the coughing. It was still going that Wednesday. Thursday it started to turn around, but then I had this lingering cough that just would not go anywhere.
Yeah,
And oh, it was pissing me off.
and you talk on the phone, don't you?
Oh yeah. So the voice is integral to my job.
I do understand that. So quickly, to anyone that is tuning in right now, most of the people that I see right now, um, they've been here before. But if you're new to the show, understand this show isn't really about toys. This is about people in the community, my community. And I don't want to say the punk community because that is something completely different.
Totally.
But my punk community, whether it be on Instagram and YouTube or Facebook, and obviously here, but people that are always joining. And I've always said, like, when I'm in these streams, I always wonder, like, who the hell is this person? Now, I've gotten to know a lot of people because of I do YouTube because I have issues. Um, but I figured I want to start talking to people that are in my stream, in my community, and let everyone get to know them. So that's what we're doing here. So if you're going to be asking toy questions about like the Valkyries, you know what is shocking? Quickly off topic, which you know how I go. I literally put the outhouse in the back of the pictures, and not one person has made a comment about it yet, which is shocking.
You know, I keep saying that I want to get that new Ninja Turtles playset just because I want a porta potty.
Yeah,
Like I'm almost tempted to spend $80 just so I can get a porta potty in scale for some toys. I want to put it in Castle Grayskull.
I think it's actually like my buddy. He lent it to me. He's like, put this in the back of some of your stuff. So, anyway, so that's how this goes. We're not really going to be talking about toys. We're going to get to know Oz. If you have questions, feel free to, jump in and say hi to him. So let's just say hi to the chat. I was start with the newest channel member, Matthew Matson. I was messing with Matson about not being the moderator, not even being a channel member. And all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I'll mess with you. Do more than enough for me. So hi to Matthew again, the moderator. You guys know if you guys get out of lane, he's gonna bump you. Largo's Lair. It's great to see you back here.
Jim.
Oz is here.
That shady motherfucker.
Who is this?
Onryu.
Okay. So he must be someone from one of your channels, I would assume.
Yeah, he's actually quite frequently part of the Toy Frenzy chat. He comes hang out with us. I know I've seen him in Mega J's as well. He's all over some toy too.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and it's even greater to have someone tell me how to say your name. Because there's still some guys that come in mind that I'm like, I don't know who this is. Master Versal Toy Hunter. You've all seen him numerous times. PNC, another channel member, thank you for joining. Payne's Toy Samples, who gets all the toys, and I'm still sitting here waiting. Tony Romo. Ted, I can't find I-75 Dark Claw. Cobweb. DJ Feebish is here. Nolan, who's in so many chats.
Oh man, it was just
Yeah,
his past week. I tried to spread around and get him all the birthday shout outs because he's in. If you've got a toy YouTube channel, Nolan is in your chat. Like he just can tell and appears.
it's kind of funny because I had that joke going with Payne
Yeah, Aaron's
before I
one
met
too.
Payne, and I'm like, "Wow, you're like in every chat." And he's like, "Yeah, so are you." I'm like, "I know. How do you think I know you're there?"
Right? I know because I've seen you there.
I'm like, "You have less of a life than I do." Okay, so anyway, let's get to know Oz a little bit. So, do you mind me asking about what age range you are? I know some people are iffy about talking about their age. I'll never understand.
No, I got no problem with it. You know, I'm actually one of the younger guys. I'm 38, born in 85.
38, man, that seems so long ago.
Right? Like I'm still a baby, apparently.
I had 9 years younger than me. I mean, geez, 85.
Yep.
Whew. When were you born?
85.
No, but what month?
Oh, January. Very beginning.
Okay, because I was born in 75 December, so like right
Okay.
at the end, right
Yeah.
at the end. 4 days after Christmas.
See, it's funny. I was 4 days into the year.
Okay, yeah, so 9 years difference between us, but that 1 year gap, that 1 year through, it always throws me off when someone's trying to explain their age.
Yeah.
How old am I? I'm really born in 76 for the most part. All right, so where did you grow up at now?
Baltimore,
Okay, so
Maryland.
and that's where you're at now, correct?
Yep. Yep.
But your sister, and I only bring this up because at PowerCon when I met you, you said your sister had driven in from Chicago,
Indiana.
Indiana,
Yep.
which isn't close. It's not like it's like, oh, she's like a half hour away.
No, it's
That's a
9 hours.
drive. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
longer than I was driving to get there. That's for sure.
Oh, well, no, to get to Ohio, that was 3 hours. I was thinking 9 hours from here. It's 9 hours from here, but she's
Okay.
in Indianapolis. She's actually right around the corner from the Speedway.
But 3 hours is still long. Was she there? Was she there long, or was she kind of?
No, she was actually, well, she was getting excited because she knew I was going to be that close.
Yeah.
And she originally was going to go to PowerCon. She herself also came into a situation where she was not able to go. I originally offered the extra ticket that I had for when I found out Dawn couldn't go. Instead of having my buddy Ziggy with me, I was going to have my sister come.
Okay.
But then she couldn't make it because her and her boyfriend at the time had made other plans that weekend to see his mom.
Oh.
Now, his mom was in she lived in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh.
So she was still able to pop out for a bit and see me while he was visiting with his mom.
All right. So she didn't just drive in there to see you. She was already,
Right.
or
Yeah.
it sounds like they kind of made it so, hey, this kind of works out. All right.
Right. They made it so that there was a reason for her to be in town while I was going to be there.
All right. So that kind of shores up something that I had been meaning to ask, and then you kind of forget because you're like, oh, she lives in Chicago, but it's closer for. I mean, this is closer for her to come and see me. I'm like, that's a long ass drive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it was a bit long, but it
But if
was
she was
again
already there,
shorter than 9 hours.
yeah.
And
But if they were
there was
already
already
there,
plans to
all
be
right,
there.
that's cool. All right. So you grew up in Baltimore, 85. I like to say that's a really bad area, but I grew up in Detroit, so in the Detroit area. I mean, it is still known as the murder capital of the world, although I think Baltimore took that over a long time ago.
Oh yeah, back in the 90s, we stole it from you guys, and
Yeah.
we've managed to hold on to it. We have more murders here per year than there are days in the year.
I don't know what Detroit is, but I can't imagine it can't be much different.
I was gonna say you guys can't be too far
Yeah, I
behind. It's
can't
not
believe
like we're leaps and bounds beyond you.
yeah.
It's
Like
just
Chicago. It's funny when you hear stuff like that. 'Cause you're like Chicago, New York, LA. They're all like
they talk
any
about how
big.
bad they are, and it's like most people have never heard of Baltimore, except when you look at shows like First off, our biggest TV presence is The Wire and a show called Homicide.
Mm-hmm.
And that was even before we took the capital.
I didn't see The Wire for quite some time.
It paints a picture. Now, I will say though, like the areas where that happens is not really too large of the city. However, I'll say this: I don't really like. I have a lot of pride for Maryland, but I also can't stand it at the same time. I
I
love the seafood. I love the bay. I like that 3 hours to the west, I'm in the mountains. 3 hours to the east, I'm at the beach. But there's not
Allison,
much else I care about this place.
Allison, this was not very nice. Detroit is where dreams go to die. Baltimore is where where you just get roughed house and left for dead.
Or
Which I
packed full
believe
of
there was a
drugs to mule to another place, too.
I believe there was an actual episode or a couple episodes in The Wire where all those houses were abandoned. They were leaving the dead, all the murdered bodies.
Dead man tell no tales. So if you leave at least a couple around so that they can kind of talk after a lot of speech therapy and, teach them how to do it again.
I know we're getting off topic. I actually just finished watching the last season of Justified.
Oh,
But,
such a good show.
but they just brought it back for a season, and it takes
Okay.
place in Detroit. He ends up in Detroit and ends up the whole season takes place in Detroit, and you can
Okay.
tell it's actually filmed here. And when they say like, they would say a city and they're like 20 miles out of Detroit, I'm like, oh my god, they got it right. Gross Point, like they got everything right.
Yeah.
And then it leads into what will be at least the final season going back to Kentucky. I'm like, oh, I'm like, I like they went away from it. They didn't bring anyone back other than him.
Right.
But at the end of the episode, it was like, oh shit, we're getting another season going
I'll
back
take
to
it.
Harlan. And if you haven't watched Justified, it's one of the best police shows. One of the best actors.
I was going to say, Timothy Oliphant always is just like that next level.
It's awesome.
That next level.
Yeah, and the show is just so good, and he hasn't missed a step. So, but that's enough. We haven't. All right, so 85. You're growing up. So, what was your childhood like? What was your family life like? Did you have good, bad? You said I get to ask anything, so
yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, it wasn't terrible. There's a lot of things that you realize more when you're older. Speaking of my
is
sister,
this someone that's going to keep you honest about what you're saying?
of course, she always keeps me in line. But yeah, it's one of those things where everybody's family's got problems. I mean, mine was pretty normal for the most part. Kind of picture Roseanne, except without Dan and Roseanne staying together for so long until she dies at the end.
Remember, he died first, and then
That's true.
And then that season never happened.
Right.
And then they brought her back, and then she said some things.
And then she died, overdosed on her meds. But yeah, no, I mean, my dad was kind of angry every now and again, but I can't say I didn't always deserve it when he was pissed off at us kids. He used to scare the crap out of us. The belt was definitely the all commanding.
Oh wow!
Cheat. Oh yeah. You'd catch a whooping if you stepped out of line, and that belt came out quick.
A lot of times, I don't know how everyone. For me, like it's just a fear more than anything. Like I never had to worry. My dad, I found out years later that I always thought my grandfather, not my dad, but his two older brothers. There's like 6 brothers and 1 sister, and the 2 older brothers you don't want to mess with them. Just put it that way. And one of my aunts had told me, no, it was your grandmother. She was the one that whooped their ass. And I went, I can see that. 4'9", full Mexican. I would not have messed with that woman.
Oh yeah, we got stories of my grandmother too. Yeah. She was a little 5-foot German lady.
And she was the most wonderful person in the world. But man, if you crossed her, no way. No, nope.
It's one of those stories that gets told in the family, but not really told much outside of the family.
Yep.
So my grandmother, it used to be okay to have slap fights. You could totally have slap fights, but do not close the fists.
Oh, okay.
And my uncle Steve, who's about 6 foot, he's a little bit taller than me. And he one time jokingly, they were having a slap fight, and he said, put him up, and did like that old school pugilist stance kind of thing. And my grandmother knocked him into the kitchen sink. Into the sink. And this has been verified by my dad and my aunt that, completely knocked him into the sink. So like, she was a sweet, sweet, sweet lady. But if you pissed her off, definitely she had some muscle behind it.
Yeah, Pop had the belt, Mom had the boomerang shoe. What's actually kind of funny that Largo brings it up. Have you seen? There's it's a little viral video, and it's, I want to say, it's someone, a Middle Eastern person, and he's showing the self defense of when his mom would take the shoe off and how to remove the flip flop from her. And he has his brother come in to imitate, and then all of a sudden the mom comes up before, and he's like,
yeah, suddenly it's game over. There is no defense anymore. Totally. Love that shit.
So how many siblings did you have?
It's just me and my sister.
Now, is she older or younger?
She's older. Yeah, okay. She's 5 years older. We had my cousin who was about a year younger than me, a little bit less than a year younger than me.
All right. So then you said she was going to go to PowerCon. So was she into pop culture, toys and stuff like that? Or just, I don't want to say girly stuff, but you know what I mean if I say girly stuff. Like Allison, people ask me, I think Tony yesterday asked me, what does Allison collect? I'm like, girl toys, like girl action figures. I'm like, she collects other stuff too, but she really likes her female figures.
Right. The female action figures. My sister has a wide range of collecting. Some of it girly, some of it not as much.
Okay.
And she's always kind of been in and out of collecting her whole life as well. Like ever since we've been kids, she has been collecting unicorns. That's always been like one of her big things. She loves unicorns. But then like she got onto a really big Lord of the Rings kick back in the early 2000s, right around the time, the Peter Jackson movies were coming out. And she had a huge collection of that. And I feel kind of bad because somewhere along the lines, like I ended up inheriting it from her. And then with me moving around a whole lot, it's disappeared. I don't have it anymore. I don't know. Because I mean, I've had a couple of different toy collections over the years where some of them actually just ended up, like I had a pretty decent Star Wars collection from like the early 2000s, like when they were getting that really, really nice articulation before Black Series, before the dark times. And, it was in a box in storage, and it ended up like everything got really bad mold to the point where I just had to get rid of it. I couldn't even keep it. Yeah. But, so she's had various collections over the years. She definitely right now has been like more into getting like some of the Princess Power stuff. She's dipped her toe into some classics even. And she's gotten that Masterverse motherboard. She loves it.
Okay, so you're born in the beginning of 85.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really coming into playing with toys till 89, 90.
Oh no, I was playing with toys much.
I know we're playing with toys, but I mean, like, you don't really know it, I think. Like, I don't remember it for, like...
My earliest memories of playing with toys is literally just me and Masters of the Universe. And my sister's even sent me, like, she has pictures from when we were that young.
Okay.
And it's like me being, like, barely 2 or 3. And I got Castle Grayskull, I got Spydor, like, all this stuff I just got for Christmas that year. And I remember a lot of that. The pictures help filter in parts that I don't remember as much, of course. But yeah, like He-Man was like my first toy line. And I was like, I don't know whether my dad was already buying my sister. I think it was because he was already buying her Shira
And that's what I was wondering.
that
Because
he started buying me Masters.
I know Motu is like your go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe is my go-to. I don't think we've established that. But I was kind of wondering when you told me your age, because like Motu was starting to die by then. By the time you would have been hitting that stride. Yeah. That's why I was wondering if maybe your sister played with the stuff, because I know Allison had talked about why they had so much stuff because of her brother and herself. So you think that a lot of that may have come down from?
I don't know that necessarily it was Carol stuff, because again, a lot of that stuff on Christmas was brand new, open for me, and that was back when waves of toys didn't really go away. You know, back then, like
when you could find toys on, and no one was like, "This is a peg warmer. I'm never buying it."
Everything was a peg warmer. Like they kept reissuing original waves over and over again, or re-releasing over time. Like you didn't get them as well.
The dark times where you could buy the toys you wanted and play with
in the store. The pegs were never empty. Like as a matter of fact, they just never ended. Like you kept pulling them off, and they kept coming. It was crazy. It wasn't like now.
I know, I hate it.
It's you walk down the action figure aisle. I'll say that. You walk down the action figure aisles, and it's like barren most of the times. You know, every other toy aisle you walk down, Barbie, you know, the Hot Wheels section, you walk down Nerf, Lego, every other aisle in the toys filled to the brim.
Yeah,
you go down the action figure aisle, empty.
You are right, and there's always two action figure aisles too.
Well, right, because you got like one that's
at Target. At Target, all the Motu and Star Wars is on one side, and on the other side you'll have like your G.I. Joe,
your Power Rangers, your Marvel Legends,
McFarlane. From far as
you get the McFarlane side. It's like superheroes in one area, and then you'll get like you'll get like your Power Rangers and like some odd ends in there, you know.
Yeah.
And then the other side, like you said, it's more Mattel. You'll have Masters. Well, now you won't really have much Masters Universe. You don't see as much of it unless it's Masterverse. In a Target, you'll find plenty of Masterverse.
Even that's starting to dwindle right now. I've noticed.
It is. It's been dying down a little bit out there.
Yeah, it's. But then they come through, like they restock, and the next week they're on clearance.
Yep. Which I don't mind. You know, because when I can buy that $20 figure next week for $8 because I decided to wait a week, I don't complain. I mean, unfortunately, it's a product of its own symptom, though. You're not buying it at the full price, and then it's got to go on clearance, and then they think people don't really want it. And
again, I will repeat why I said I think 6-inch vehicles will fail at stores, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole other episode that I could do that people would disagree with me on, but
we can come bitch about it on my channel sometime. It's fine.
Yeah, we can. I will do a whole show about that with people that want to disagree or agree or whatever and have a conversation. So anyway, let's get into. So you're talking like you get in the 90s, you have to be Turtles, right? Like you would be applying for Turtles because I was never into Turtles.
Well, see, the funny part is like, again, growing up, I realize now a little bit more about how fortunate I was, but at the time I didn't think I was as fortunate. And there's a reason for that. I had this best friend growing up. His name was Eric. And he had a big old toy room. And his parents got him like every toy under the sun.
And what am I wrong about, Mr. Wonderful? Travis, what am I wrong about?
Oh, yeah. We're going to need some clarity.
Won't fail. Just end up having us consumers get them on the cheap when they hit clearance. To me, that isn't a failure. Yeah, it's not a failure when we get it.
It's not a failure.
But then when no one will reorder it all the G.I. Joe stuff from the vehicles, then that's when Hasbro says
the toy line and Hasbro will deem it as a failure if everything has to go to clearance. That's the shame.
But I understand what Mr. Wonderful is trying to find a Hexa stack right now that will fit the vamp. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to size it out already.
we're gonna start seeing Hexastack in that collector's section against the back wall of Target,
Next to the neck and stuff.
next to the NECA stuff as the superior toy stand. That's what we're all gonna see one day. It's gonna be carried in Target.
As long as it's Travis's face like this.
Oh yeah, it's got to be definitely him right up there, the thumbs up, little Mega J up in the corner. I'm gonna say Mega J is like his best salesman ever. Totally.
I know.
I mean, mind you, I heard Travis's pitch plenty of times because there'd be times we were just standing there and I'm waiting to say something to Travis, but then he's got people coming up and he's talking to him about everything, which is great. I ain't mad.
I was there for one day and I'm like, dude, I know your speech already.
Yeah, you heard it 2 or 3 times. You got it. But you know what, though, man? He was good at it. He was definitely pitching it.
Like, we're walking. I'm like, dude, you don't have to tell me. I already backed you, dude. All right? You don't have to pitch me anymore. I got it. He's like, I know.
So, like, okay, Travis, you go walk around. We'll go stand there and we'll say everything.
All right. So, going into the 90s, it's so weird. You're the first person I've talked to that is as young as you are.
Right. So
38, which I don't think 38 is young, but so
it's
going
not
into the 90s,
young, it's youngest.
You'd be 10. Like as the power of the Force stuff was coming out.
Oh yeah,
all that Spawn stuff,
dude. Oh man, it was such a really, really cool time to still like be into toys, and I think that's part of what kept me with toys for so long. So
I have to ask because I remember collecting Power of the Force and going and getting all that 95. What was it like being a 10-year-old kid seeing that stuff? Because obviously Star Wars would have been an old property, but we all saw Star Wars. It was on every weekend.
For
what
me,
was it like as a kid, like seeing steroided Luke? And
it was a bit odd seeing that, but I will say this. So 1985, I'm born. By 87, Star Wars doesn't even have a place on the shelf really anymore in a toy store. You don't see it. The only place I can find Star Wars toys. Now, mind you, I watched the tapes enough that we wore out the VHS.
Yes, we all did.
I'd be watching it nonstop. And so, like, acting out, I used to take the pole from my Ghostbusters firehouse, and that was my lightsaber because it looked kind of like the lightsaber. So, I would act out the lightsaber fight scenes and everything like that. Huge Star Wars fan. Is probably the only thing that has ever challenged Masters of the Universe for like peak of my favorites. And then, so yeah, but you couldn't find the toys except at like yard sales and stuff. And even though then it was like they were pretty cheap at yard sales, but you could never find them with the accessories or the weapons or Luke's lightsaber. Like, even though the thing was inside his hand, it would always be missing.
I gotta say this: Digital Diary says Power of the Force Leia looking like she was modeled after China. There's never been a figure that looks more like a monkey than Princess Leia.
That first Power of the Force.
I remember looking at it like she looks like a monkey.
I was like, this does not look like Leia, but okay.
How is Carrie Fisher never had a decent looking? Never. I know they made some okay ones recently.
Hot Toys.
Oh, okay.
Hot Toys.
That is not an
articulated statue.
I'm not playing with that. The face. It's not even that the face didn't look like her. They always looked awful. But
they did. They didn't even look like an attractive female for most of her figures.
They didn't look like an attractive monkey.
And well, like the other worst part about that too was because, again, like most of those figures, they had like this kind of action pose. So like if you took her plastic cape off, she couldn't stand. She fell over all the time. It was terrible. Like the absolute worst figure out of that whole first couple of waves that they came out with.
But at the same time, you were like, when you're like, this is so perfect because I can move her anywhere. She's the one that will never fall.
That's true.
But the moment you took it off, her legs were all like a bendy, a bendy that didn't bend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, in the 90s, we all had like the carpet left over from the 80s in our houses and stuff like that. So it was kind of like mashed down, but not quite hardwood yet. And You go to put the figure on it, and like they would all fall over. I'm pretty sure that carpet is the reason that figure stands were invented, because you could stand them on a table most of the time, but you put them on a carpet and they would just fall. Nope, she was solid.
Weren't we somewhere just recently, either on a stream or maybe we started talking about things from like the 80s and 90s that happened with like carpets getting like I forget what we had a conversation about that, like things that would get smashed down or why, like, it was just like, it wasn't supposed to be like that, but that's just how it was because after the years of it being worn down.
Well, yeah, because there wasn't a such thing as cheap carpet. Like that was like a late 90s, early 2000s invention, I swear to God. Yeah.
I like the Lando.
The Lando was great, man, and he definitely looked like the sex symbol of the 70s when he came out in Power of the Force 2.
How he did not come with a Colt 45, I don't know.
That open big collar, and then the ripped chest underneath, because all of them had ripped chests, even though I know that's not how they looked in the movies.
Vader had one. He's a robot.
And I was going to say he had a padded suit with plastic armor, and now I can see muscle definition. Now look, David Prowse, the body of Darth Vader in the movies was ripped. He was a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
It didn't show through the suit.
No, not like that. No. Only Arnold would do that.
Only Arnold, and that's a fact.
So
I was in love when that toy catalog first came out. Like, well, I'd seen them I was a part of the Star Wars Insider fan club, so you get the Star Wars Insider magazine.
Oh wow!
And they had like a big splash page when they were just announcing them. Star Wars Galaxy magazine, that used to be like one of my monthly pickups along with my comic books. So they had the big scene about it. As soon as I saw it in the first ones of those, I went to my mom and I was like, I need all of these. Every last one of them. And sure enough, because again, my birthday is 4 years into the new year. So it's like, the 25th is Christmas. 10 days later is January 4th. So between my birthday and Christmas that year, I had all of Wave 1. Had the Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, the Land Speeder.
That prime age for it.
And, well, the best part is I'm in 5th grade, right? In 5th grade, it's one of those key years where a lot of the kids would start weaning away from the toys. And here I am coming into school with a box of Star Wars toys. So me and like the 2 other friends that I had that were into Star Wars would play with them at recess together.
Yeah.
I was so glad every Han Solo came with a blaster pistol, because I definitely lost like 4 of them.
Yeah, that blaster pistol was used a lot in a lot of those figures.
Yeah, it was. And I was, like I said, I was pretty glad. That and the Stormtrooper blaster.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that came with a lot of figures, because, I needed it. Like, they gave you one with the TIE Pilot. TIE Pilot doesn't need a freaking blaster. He's sitting inside my TIE Fighter.
But the original one came...
It's true, yeah.
The original Star Wars Kenner one came with, which I still is one of my favorite guns. That Stormtrooper one.
Oh, yeah.
From from my childhood.
Like, was that the E11?
Like nothing like the one.
Oh, yeah, no. Not like the one in the movie at all.
But
his did, because it had the broom handle, that little rounded handle, so it looked kind of like it. I think Han's was probably the closest to what he had from the movie.
Han.
Well, he had that weird other blaster. I don't know what that was.
Well, that was the one, it came with Lando.
Yeah.
And a few other people, but it looked. I'm like, I always liked that one more, but it looked nothing like in Star Wars.
No, not at all. It's like, that's not the gun that Vader stole off of him. I'll say that much. All these people.
The one time Vader deflected laser bolts with his hand.
Well, it's funny. Like, all these people were talking shit about Kylo Ren in the new movie, stopping blasters, like, stopping blaster bolts mid-air. And it's like, I watched Vader do it with his hand. Everybody was all happy to see him do it with the lightsaber in Rogue One. It's like Empire Strikes Back. He told Han Solo's DL-44 to talk to the hand, and it did. And
Yeah,
it shut the fuck up.
But you know the difference.
Well, I mean, Vader was the
You there?
epitome of all things
Someone's
evil.
breaking
I'm
up.
still here. Are we
You
still
there?
connected?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm here.
You know the difference? Yeah, you know the difference is that. Yeah, you just said it. The difference is Empire was a good movie, and The Force Awakens was garbage, and then the two after that were even worse.
Okay, look,
I
The
know some
Force
people disagree.
Awakens is not
Not
absolute garbage. It's a completely repackaged episode 4. Okay, so it's just that we've seen it before. It was polished up a little
it
bit
was
different,
okay.
but
It was
it
okay
was,
at best.
well, it's because we'd already seen it. You know, we'd already seen that entire story done before. And as cool as it was, you know, we'd seen it. And honestly, when I went to go see it, I was like, oh my God, this movie was so great. It was so good. And then somebody's like, yeah, but I've already seen it. And I was like, what do you mean? They go, dude, it was just like lather, rinse, repeat of episode 4. And I thought about it for a minute and I was like, oh, fuck you, man. That totally just became average.
It
You
was
know,
okay,
I was just
but
excited to have it come back. That was all. But
it was a mix of all three movies, is what it really was. It
yeah.
was really a mix of all three, and I don't even want to get into it. I like happy
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a
I
tale.
like
That's
happy stuff.
definitely a talk for another time.
So
That's a
going
rough
there, so
conversation.
we're going through the 90s. You're in the 90s here.
So
You're
I
10
mean,
going in 10 and 15. Like you when you get out of the 90s, you're going into the 2000s, you're 15 or 16. That's crazy. That
well,
seems
yeah,
so
yeah.
foreign to me. So how long do you think you were playing with toys, or did you ever stop?
I pretty much continued to play with toys up until about 99. Now, by 1999, I was definitely more doing video games than toys, but I was still actively getting like the Power of the Force. That was the only toys I was buying at that
Okay.
time.
Now, anything with Spawn or anything? Did you?
No, I was definitely into Spawn. As a matter of fact, my aunt got me my first Spawn toy. She got me that bendy violator that came with the comic.
I had it.
Oh man, yeah, totally had that. Had the original Spawn, had the medieval Spawn, had Redeemer, like everything that came out in those first couple of waves because they were just so cool. They weren't nearly as posable as some of my other figures, you know, because I also really liked, and the main reason my aunt got me the Spawn, she didn't even know that I really liked Spawn the comic. It was because it was a superhero.
Oh,
And she knew I liked the Toy Biz X-Men and Spider-Man stuff. So she ended up getting me this Spawn figure, and I was like, "Ah, this is phenomenal! Like, this is great." You know, that was actually my first dabbling into Four Horsemen before I ever knew who they were. They have followed me my entire toy life at this point.
yes, they're
Um,
following you.
yeah, they have. Every time I start buying toys again, it's because those assholes. It's not entirely true, but mostly. Well, and then in 1999, my house burned down.
Okay.
Yeah, Memorial Day weekend, house fire, and that went all of my toys from my childhood, like everything. Now,
Now,
mind you, at
were your
that point,
parents together at the time, or you talk?
no,
Okay. So
they
whose
had
house
split.
would this be?
This would be my dad's house, but it was
Okay.
the house that we, you know, grew up in.
Okay.
And
Wait,
the
wait.
house.
Wait. Your dad got the house.
Oh yeah. Well, my mom left him.
Okay, that
Okay.
still doesn't change my.
So my
No,
mom,
I don't.
she wanted out. She got out. She got a trailer. She moved,
Okay.
and basically was just like, my dad could have whatever he needed. She just wanted out. So, uh, you know, and I was living with my dad still. And so everything just burnt up to a crisp. But that's why, like, I don't have like any of the vintage toys. Like a lot of guys, if their parents didn't get rid of everything, they still have like some of their original toys and everything like that. I have nothing original.
Yeah.
None of the stuff I have. Even the vintage toys that I own today, I wouldn't even have any if it wasn't for the fact that a mentor slash friend of mine was moving, and he came over with a giant tote of toys because it had quite a bit of Masters of the Universe, and he knew I was like into that. So he brought it over, and I had a whole bunch of the vintage figures, of course, like most of the ones that I had, but it even had a couple in there that I didn't have previously as a kid. So that was kind of cool.
Wow.
But yeah, that's and that just happened within the last few years that he did that, because then after everything burned up, I tried to get back into Star Wars toys again.
You said that was 99?
Yeah, it was 99.
So you're what, 15, 16?
Yep.
And that's not an age where you want to let the other kids at high school know you're collecting toys
Right.
too much.
Only the people who were like close to me knew I was still into toys. So like there was a handful of friends who had been over, knew that I still kind of like toys and that I still played with them. But most of us were switching over to video games by that point. Like I said, for me, it was really at that point just Star Wars.
Yeah.
That was about all that I was getting.
And you're really coming into the PlayStation war, and
yeah, exactly.
Nintendo's pretty much destroyed PlayStation, or destroyed Sega.
Oh
PlayStation's coming out of nowhere.
Well, Dreamcast was on its way. It wasn't out yet.
God,
beautiful system, well beyond its time. And PlayStation had been out for quite a few years at that point, but like PlayStation 2 was knocking on the door. And it was actually just a year later, I was actually lined up outside of the Kmart I was working at, getting ready to buy that. Yeah.
PlayStation 2?
Yeah. I was camping, waiting on that one.
I remember I remember people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I found out exactly how many my store was getting because I was working at Kmart that time. I had been working nonstop, saving up for it. Had a TV on layaway. God, I missed that. You remember layaway? Had the TV.
I remember Kmart layaway very well.
Yep, that's how I got a lot of the toys.
I did not grow up rich. We just my dad just spoiled us, and same with my mom when my mom was still around. So yeah, I
was always talking my mom into putting stuff on layaway. I was like, put it on layaway. And then I started working, and I was like, I'm gonna just put it on layaway. I'll put everything on layaway. The only thing I didn't put on layaway was the ramen noodles I was eating. That was it. But yeah, so I was working, camping out, waiting for my PlayStation 2 to drop. Because at that point in time, after the house burned down,
all my electronics are put through layaway.
Hey man, that's how you did it. Like, so after the house burned down, like, now mind you, I was kind of upset because I had just gotten a Super Nintendo like 2 years ago in 1998. Now again, by that time, most people had Super Nintendo. Most people had N64. Not me. No. We didn't have that unless I was buying the console. Like I didn't have a regular Nintendo until the Super Nintendo was on its way out the door. We just didn't have one. We did have a Commodore 64. We had the Atari. Those were carried over, but we did not have Nintendo until like 95. And then eventually we did get my mom put it on layaway at Kmart, got us the Super Nintendo, and that was amazing. I was playing Killer Instinct, all the Mortal Kombats, the Super Star Wars games, Empire and Return of the Jedi and all. Link to the Past, loved it. Super Nintendo to this day is still one of my favorite consoles of all time. And then so like again, after the house burned down, I didn't have a game console anymore, nothing like that. So my mom tried to make it up and got me an N64. She bought me the console, didn't have a game with it.
It's such a good console.
It was fun. The controller was awkward, but it wasn't unredeemable.
When you learn how to use it, though.
Well, after the games learned how to, because you remember like some of them first games when they were just getting into the 3D and you couldn't pan the camera angle right.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this sucks. Well, I mean, that's how we all played Resident Evil back then too on the PlayStation.
The first
Horrible control.
the first 64 games that were like the only ones when they first came out that you could play were the ones made by Nintendo, because no one else knew how to do.
They knew how
the
to do the controller,
and
right?
it took time, but by that time,
Yep.
PlayStation had made it easy for everyone else. So, yeah,
Oh yeah, well, because they had that Dual Shock too. They came out with that
Yep.
Dual Shock after Metal Gear,
Yep.
and that just changed everything.
Yes, I was always a Nintendo guy, so I never really got into PlayStation. And I try and stay away from video games now because I know where it will lead.
That buddy of mine, Eric, who grew up with the awesome toys and everything
Yeah.
else, that I used to compare my stuff to his and be like, well, that's why I'd never felt like I had anything, because he had everything. But he always had like the latest gaming consoles. So I got like a lot of my PlayStation knowledge from hanging out over his place, playing the original Xbox, all that kind of stuff. The only thing I think I ever beat him was the PlayStation 2, and that's because I bought it myself because I was working. Yeah, waiting in the lines, man. I waited forever for PlayStation 2. Camped out for like 3 days. When I had to work, I would literally have my mom sit in my spot at the line so that I could go into work, and then I would come out and resume my spot. But I did because I wanted my damn $300 PlayStation.
Wow.
Yep. And I remember like thinking to myself too, I was like, well, the PlayStation 1's like $80 to $90. A DVD player at the time, because they were still new, hot off the market, those were like $200-$300 by themselves almost. So I was like, if I get a PlayStation 2, I got a DVD player, I got a PlayStation 1, and a PlayStation 2. So even if I'm not buying a whole bunch of PlayStation 2 games right away, like it doesn't matter. I've still got all them years of PlayStation 1.
One of the best things Sony could have done.
Yeah, it was a beautiful system.
Yeah.
I was such a fanboy for PlayStation 2. And then Xbox came out and I played Halo. That was really cool. I played Morrowind. Because I got into gaming for quite a few years. Again, Toyz took a back burner. I was mostly doing gaming.
So that's what I mean, what the early aughts. That's so weird to say.
Right.
The early 2000s, right?
Those early 2000s. So yeah, by then I was doing gaming. Like I said, I was mostly PlayStation 2. I never owned an Xbox, but I always played my friends and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. Then then we started getting into the big console wars. The age of the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the Wii.
The PlayStation 3 versus the Xbox, where Xbox said, we're doing HD DVDs, and Sony said, we're doing Blu-ray, and I will go to my grave saying Blu-ray won because Sony owned Spider-Man. That everyone wanted Spider-Man on Blu-ray. It was the biggest movie.
Well,
it killed HD DVDs, made everyone go to Blu-ray.
Only to a point, because what really, really put the nail in the coffin for the HD DVD was when Disney and the porn industry said, we're going with Blu-ray, not HD DVD. So your biggest entertainment distributor for children and families, and for the lonely men. And that was it. That took the market.
But you had people trying to decide, and Spider-Man was the big, and since Sony owned it,
big one.
They were like, we're pushing this out on Blu-ray, not HD.
Yeah. Well, because HD DVD would have had to bankrupt themselves just to try and buy rights for distribution to their.
I feel bad for the people that invested in HD DVD.
Oh man, all those people that bought that add-on for their Xbox 360 that was like completely useless 3 months later. Oh, because that was always like, I think $150 to $200 at the time. I can't remember exactly because I was actually not. I was not on board with the Xbox 360.
Matthew tends to agree with you here. Disney and the porn industry make VHS and Blu-ray.
It's true story, very true story. So when PlayStation 2 came out and then the Xbox was coming out, and they both kind of ended up burying the Dreamcast because the Dreamcast was out a little bit before them,
Well, I remember the
And
Dreamcast.
oh my god, it was so ahead of its time, but that controller was god awful. Now, mind you, I was a fan of big controllers because I got these huge hands.
I hated the Xbox
So,
controller. When my buddies got it, I'm like, I can't play it. I have little
right.
hands.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. That was one of the reasons why I stopped liking the PlayStation controller, because my hands got bigger, but the PlayStation controller never grew. Yeah, Sony's revenge for Betamax. That's
so,
it.
Funny story is, in the guy Sergeant Reds, I swear to God, the store that he's in was one of the last places in the area in the 80s that sold Betamax. And he's like, this was never a video store. I'm like, then it's one of these stores, because he's on a main street. It's one of these standalone stores, because we had to drive over here because no one else had Betamax, because that's what we had.
Right.
So we had the Betamax, and that's the only place we could rent movies from.
Yeah, because like nobody had them.
Nope.
Nobody had them.
So,
but it was definitely you know, I was getting all into the PlayStation 3, but when they made like the first announcement of how much it was going to cost. Now, mind you, at like their very first press release, they were saying it was going to be like $1,200 because of how expensive Blu-ray was at the time. And this is like a year or two before it actually hit. So, you know, it was very, very early on in that. I was done.
Yes, DJ.
Yeah, the original Xbox controller definitely felt like that, man. That thing was that was a brick. It was a definite brick.
It was like getting the hubcap for the gas station bathroom. Can I use your bathroom key? Here you go.
Yeah, here it is, and it's like a whole wall panel they give you.
Nowadays, you go ask for the bathroom key, and it's connected to an Xbox controller.
That's it.
One controller.
Okay, ain't nobody running away with that thing. That's the cord they got tied around the key is the Xbox controller cord, because they weren't wireless back then either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I remember pulling when you would pull the cord out of like the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo, because when you were jumping, you thought this would make you jump further.
Oh yeah, it definitely helped.
My dad was awful with that. Dad, it doesn't help. What are you talking about? It doesn't help.
It doesn't help. Standing while you play does not make you better.
Pushing the buttons down harder.
Originally, no, but then they added analog buttons to the controller, so it kind of did.
Yeah, but how many of us had the most raw thumbs from playing PlayStation? Because
even just playing regular Nintendo with them stiff ass buttons it had. You know, like that real stiff ass buttons when you were pushing them, man. Yeah, man. Or the original Sega, the buttons on that thing, because they had like 6 of them over there. Oh man, those, you know, it was fun seeing the evolution of the gaming controller, though. I think, you know, because now they're so standardized.
I think for me, because I'm not a gamer and I never was. I mean, as a kid, yeah, Nintendo, Super Nintendo.
Well, of course, yeah.
I get to kind of look back at them now, especially my son's a big gamer. Looking back at it now, I can see it, but like, I didn't care. Like, there were decades that I didn't play games, other than a few things. I mean, I got a PlayStation, so I could play Tony Hawk. Like, that was cool. I played Tony Hawk. I remember Tony Hawk too.
Dude, I remember PlayStation Magazine had the demo discs, and I remember playing the first demo disc for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It was like Tony Hawk and Bucky Lasik, and you know, just cruising around in that game, like, because it was a demo, so you could just keep going. It didn't stop, and I was like, "This is so much fun. This is so ridiculous." But by the time like the third or fourth one finally came out, I was like, "I am so done with these games."
Those games did so much for skateboarding, so much. I didn't do anything for me. It didn't help me because
no, but
I was gonna ride that useless wooden toy no matter what. But
well, I mean, a lot of us in the mid '90s, like you had like Skate Magazine and everything like that. So you know, there was a culture to it. It was still kind of mostly underground, and then Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out, and all of a sudden, everybody wanted to skateboard. Like it really brought attention to the culture and who was doing it. And, you know, it was cool. It was really neat to see that and finally start sharing in this hobby that, again, kind of like the whole late bloomer going through Toyz still. Like you didn't. If I was skateboarding, all the guys on their bikes would come and try to beat me up, kind of thing. Until I picked up my board and whacked them with it, because it was a lot easier to pick up my board than it was to pick up for them to pick up their bike. I could pick up their bike, no problem. But
yeah, I know I've heard people talk where they're like, it was weird because now people knew what a kickflip was. Before they didn't know what it was. They heard that, but they now knew what ollies were. They couldn't do them.
Yeah, they didn't understand the difference
of tricks.
Right.
I can tell you one of the craziest things for me watching, especially Tony Hawk 2, was these lines that you would do, and we would laugh about them. And here I am, 20 years later, and I'm watching some stuff that guys do, and I go, this was stuff we made jokes about, that no one could ever do a trick like this, like a long line like this.
Right.
And they're doing these combination of tricks, and I'm like, I don't even understand it.
I can see it on YouTube, and I'm like, am I watching like a new Tony Hawk game, or did this guy legitimately just go for like 7 minutes straight doing like almost one line of tricks?
Yeah, I mean, I've said to people, like, when I see someone do like a combination of a trick or whatever, or any type of trick, and I'm like, I have studied skateboarding. I was a skate nerd, right?
Yeah.
When I don't understand it, I don't understand how somebody who doesn't ride a skateboard can understand it. Because even though I can't do it, I can. But I look at some things and I'll send it over to my buddy, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" And he's like, "Well, it's this." I'm like, "Is it?" And he's like, "Yeah, look at how." I'm like, "Okay." So,
but it's also crazy to just think of, as we've gotten older, what's happened with that, because then again, for a long while, skateboarding kind of went away. And now here it is, like it's starting to come back again. It's gotten this resurgence. I see a lot more boarders out there than I had in the last several years. I mean, at least in my area.
It was dead in the 90s. It was the X Games that brought it back.
Well, see, for me, during the 90s, where I was, like, there was a handful of us that were doing it. And again, once Tony Hawk came out, then it kind of blew up a lot
more. 900. The 900, him landing that 900. I can remember them breaking and showing it live.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because no one even knew what it was, and people don't even realize.
We didn't have the ease of access to the internet to pull it up to watch something like that, too.
Yeah, but ESPN went live, and they kept going. And what people don't realize, like, if you ever watch documentaries about it, and to me it's fascinating, but it was like, it was the best trick. He was long out of it because he didn't land it. So the best trick was over, but they somehow, ESPN and whoever was in charge at the time, they're like, he's in the middle of trying to do something. He's not going to win anything. And they just kept airing it. And then when he finally landed it, and to be a kid to know how long he was trying it, going back to the late 80s, and we've seen other guys come close, and then to see him actually finally land it, and to realize, like, ESPN is one of their biggest things that they've ever done, even now, like one of their top 10 things I think they normally talk about. It's crazy. And, like, to be a skateboarder and know how bad we were hated for riding a fucking piece of wood.
Kicked out of everywhere.
Oh,
like, the moment you showed up to a shopping center, the cops got called. Like, they heard the wheels coming down the pavement, and they were like, all right, call the cops. Like, I didn't even do anything. I just showed up. I'm going to Rite Aid to go get some Tylenol for my mom or whatever. Like, nope.
Yeah, Brick, you're right. Like, the game changed everything. Like, it really did. I don't want to get on this because I can talk about skateboarding. I mean, I'll be here until I have to go to work.
Hey, it's okay, because like I said, I don't mind talking about skateboarding, because again, like, there are a lot of kids out there today that, I couldn't even tell you more modern boarders because I just don't follow it like that. But talking about the days of, like, again, Tony Hawk was at his peak out there. Bucky Lasik was around. Bam Margera was a nobody before Jackass skateboarder.
Yeah.
Stuff like, I met him and had no idea who he was until Jackass came out later.
What's actually kind of funny is that like Rob Dyrdek was a nobody.
Yeah.
I remember Rob Dyrdek, and I remember how good he was, and I liked him because he was small like I was. And then I remember him, when he started getting popular on MTV.
Yeah,
And I
it was
remember people
MTV that
asking
really
me,
blew him up.
yeah, I remember people asking me about him skating. Is he really that good? I'm like, yeah, he really is. So what people don't realize is that the whole Big and Rob thing, I remember a video that they did where he had hired Big before they did anything on MTV just to protect him so he could skate places.
Yeah.
So that was his gimmick because he talks about it. He's like, I was a small guy. He's like, I was getting older in skateboarding. I had to do something to stand out. That's how he stood out. I also remember Ryan Sheckler. I don't know if anyone remembers Life of Ryan on MTV.
Yes.
Little prodigy skateboarder. And I remember just seeing, because I wasn't really into skating at that time. I was in I'm raising kids and everything. And I just remember seeing, like, they're making this whole MTV show. And I'm like, this kid better be good, or else he's never going to live it down. And I got to tell you, that guy, his shoe right here, he lived up to every single hype that he did. Like, he's that good, and it's just like the fact that some of these guys got really, you got to be lucky. Like, they put you on it. You were a prodigy skateboarder. I've seen a lot of prodigy little kids, and then they hit 11, 12, 13, 16, and they're like, oh, people caught up to you. You're not all that. Or you find something else,
Yeah, like you started off really good because you were above your age range.
Yeah.
But as you got older, everybody else caught up, and now you're just kind of mediocre.
And now you're seeing like Bam, who much talent,
man.
and he's just completely killed himself.
He's
like
off
literally
the rails. Yeah. At this point, he is literally killing himself.
I know that feeling too.
For me, it's mostly my size. Because again, Lawrence, you've met me now, so you know how big I am. There ain't boards out there that can hold me and really carry my weight to do much.
I disagree.
There's boards out there for 360 pounds. I'll take it.
Powell and Santa Cruz both make two boards that will not break.
Okay. Send me a link if you can.
Yeah. The Powell flight
wouldn't
board.
mind checking that. Well, that would help me lose a lot of weight.
Yeah. And the Santa Cruz VX boards. I was snapping boards like crazy. That's the only reason why I know what boards will don't snap. But they're a carbon fiber.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Wood with carbon fiber, they will not snap.
Yeah, that's fine. I could do that.
Yeah.
But because I remember picking up a board like a couple of years ago, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to start skateboarding to and from work kind of thing, because I was working right down the street from my house. Now, mind you, quite a bit of it was uphill, so I knew getting to work was going to suck, but at least getting home wouldn't have been too bad. And like, I went to go stand on a board, and like the middle of it was just sagging so much. I was like, they can't handle my weight. Never mind.
You're going to laugh about this, but a couple of years ago, I was skating with a buddy that is about your size. He was never really into skating. I went to high school with him. I didn't talk to him. Like, we weren't friends in high school. He started skating, so he'd always start talking to me. But he was really insecure because, people are insecure about it. I'm like, dude, just come out and skate with us. So he started skating and he started learning tricks, but like, it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to continue to ask you. And then you keep saying you're not going to come out. Like, I'm done. Like, I've asked you enough, and then like I posted I went skating and you're like, oh, you never asked me. I'm like, every time I ask you, you give me an excuse. I'm not going to waste my time. Like,
Exactly.
if you need me to skate, ask. And like, it's like a drug. Like, I really shouldn't, but I'll be there.
Right? Yeah.
So,
but I would definitely be down to get a board again and start cruising around, because I used to spend a lot of my teenage years, like I was telling you before we went live, like I had one of the old school single tail boards from the 80s that it was just a tank. And I loved it. And I just used to cruise around on it. It wasn't even about like just hitting tricks or whatever like that. I could still do, ollies, kick flips, grinds, but the board itself was so heavy, you weren't getting a lot of air to do like something really cool.
And the boards that I was telling you about, they're super light.
Well, I would hope so. It being carbon fiber, definitely got to reduce the weight.
I think they're all 5-ply. Most boards are 5-ply hard maple wood. Sorry to bore everyone that, but they're like 5-ply with 2 plies of carbon fiber.
Okay.
And like they run them over with cars. Like it's almost impossible to
Nice.
break them. And like
Well,
when
I'd
you
love to
see,
ride one of those.
yeah, they don't snap. And I won't snap one.
And I just got to find some thick wheels too. That'll be good.
So anyway, let's get into like you're getting to graduation, graduating, right? So you're into video games.
Yep.
You're graduating.
I graduated. I gotta say that.
Well,
that was a thing. I graduated. Okay, I'm just putting it. I graduated.
All right, so toys are kind of on the back burner, like most of us, because we're teenagers, becoming 20-year-olds. Adults don't collect toys. Behind me.
What?
So after graduation, what did you go and do?
There's a chunk of my life there that I won't talk about, but I did go into the workforce.
Okay.
So then there was a while I was working at Pizza Hut, and that's where things kind of started to. I realized my adult life sucks.
Okay.
So I'm about like 23. I had a job working at Pizza Hut. I'm working at Walmart unloading trucks just so I can afford to live. Couldn't even afford groceries. So I'm eating free pizza from Pizza Hut.
Which sounds good, but it's not.
Oh, it sounds great, but when you're doing it every day and you're not doing much else.
Pizza Hut is one of the pizzas that is the law of diminishing returns. The first one tastes good. The second one doesn't, but you're going to have that third because you think it's going to taste as good as the first, and it never does.
It's chasing the dragon, man.
Yes.
You know, you're chasing the pizza dragon. No, I have fond memories of Pizza Hut as a kid being like the most delicious thing. And then as I became an adult, it was like subpar. And then all I want is like that old school hole in the wall pizza shop, you know, that pizzeria pizza. And I can't even find that anymore. Like they're just
Friday at school in high school was pizza day, and they had Pizza Hut pizza. So you're getting real pizza. So as a kid, you're like, oh my God, like Fridays are awesome. Then when you like aren't in school and you're stopped to get pizza and you get Pizza Hut and you become, or your parents order it, you're like, this is awful. It tastes really good in the school, but now it tastes bad.
yeah. So, you know, again, like I'm working that. I'm unloading trucks at Walmart, which is probably the only reason that I stayed under 300 pounds at that time, was because, again, all I was eating was Pizza Hut pizza and working at Walmart unloading trucks. So they kind of balanced each other a little bit, but I still got really big and fat though. And eventually I just had enough, and then I was jobless for a little bit. Then I started, like, again, this whole time I'm like, all I'm doing is like drinking and depressed, but I don't really think I'm depressed because I'm using partying as an escape. And so like I'm partying hard every weekend, like almost nonstop, actually working 2 full-time jobs, then to eventually not working any job at all. My house is the party house where everybody's coming over.
And about what age? What age would you say you were?
It's like 23 going into 25, like those years of my life. So again, through that time, I'm like, again, now living on my own kind of thing with roommates and stuff like that. And we're constantly partying, which is great for me because I'm not working. Eventually I didn't have enough money to buy beer anymore. So like having people come over and drink all the time and then keeping the fridge stocked for me was kind of nice. And then eventually like that went away. I ended up getting another job. I started working for a moving company. And as I was working for a moving company, I started making money. And I was at the time living kind of in and out of the truck with my driver, because there was a portion of the time where I was working at the warehouse here in Maryland and Southern Maryland at a place called Jessup. The other portion of my time, I was going on line drives and long hauls with this one driver DJ, and we were going all across the United States. I've been to every state within the United States, with the exception of Alaska and Hawaii, because they're the only two where we would have had to like really cross any
Yes.
borders to go to. You can't get, well, you can get to Alaska in a truck, but you can't get to Hawaii in the truck.
Again, those are the two places that I will not ship goods to.
But yeah, so like at that point in time, I'm like, just with roughnecks the whole time, like really getting into this whole roughneck attitude. It's not doing anything for my drinking. You know, other than the fact that depending on which state we're in, I can smoke in the bar, and depending on other states, I can't. But yeah, that was a time when I was living very light. But then when I would get back to Maryland, I started to build up that toy collection again. And this is going 2005 into 2006 and 7. So it was like right around the time episode 3 hit, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
All the Star Wars toys back then were like amazing. Because you were still all like the 3 3/4 scale.
Yeah.
All had really good articulation. They were doing like toys of everything. Like, if some dude was sitting in the shitter in the Death Star, they made a freaking toy of that guy. All right. And he came with the porta potty and the mouse pot or whatever it was. Like, that's just like they were making everything. They didn't care. And I loved it.
I had a lot, like when episode 1 came out and episode 2, I had all those little comm stands that came with it.
Oh yeah, the little comm check things.
It never seemed to work for me.
So the freaking comm reader thing was like this huge little thing, but yet the thing that Qui-Gon had in his hand was a female lady's razor they added some shit on. Why did they make this so big? All you gotta do is just buy the product design from this. You don't even have to buy the rights to it. Just go buy a whole handful of them. They're like freaking $1.
It's funny that.
But whatever. It is what it is. They could still sell it for like $20, but I do remember the first time I did try to get back into toy collecting was right after the house fire when episode 1 came out, and I bought all of like the new wave of episode 1 toys that came out, and I realized the only ones that I really cared for was like Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like the rest of the figures were so friggin' generic, I just did not care. Or it was like the battle droids.
I gotta say this. So I lived with an ex-girlfriend who had a son when episode 1 had come out. And we played with the Anakin and Sabobo pod racers.
Yeah.
So much fun. I know people hate, I don't know how people hate pod racing. I think the pod racing scene is still such a great part of that whole movie saga of Star Wars. I know people hate it, but I'm like, it is a race where things are getting blown up. Sand people are shooting, but him.
Yeah, you got snipers picking people off from the stands.
Like 3 or 4-year-old. I forget how old Jacob was at the time. We would run around and you're banging against Sabobo, and we had so much fun. Like those toys were so much fun, and I wish I had them just to have.
Well, I had the pod race pilots, but that was one of the things I kind of got pissed off about was they came out with like all the different pilots in the pod race. But they only came out with Sebulba's and Anakin's pod racer. You never got the other pod racers.
I think there was one other pod racer. Too.
There was like one other generic one because that was the only way you could get that pod racer pilot. He came with his pod racer, but that was it.
This one was like the 4 arms, isn't it?
Yeah, because the other ones came in like this like dual packs. Because it was like you got this pilot, and they both came with a probe droid.
Yep.
Or not, I say probe droid, pit droid, the little whatevers. And like that's how they came. But you never got their pod racers. Yeah. And I'm like, that was a missed opportunity because that really would have been cool to do that.
Yeah. But
I also like that episode 1 came out with creatures packs too. none of the other movies ever did like the creatures packs, but like you could get like the Creatures of Naboo pack and all like that. They had a bunch of just creatures packs.
Yeah, yeah.
And I enjoyed that because I'm all about the creatures and critters. I like world building, which is one of the reasons why I don't mind buying a figure of the guy who's taking a shit on the Death Star when it blows up. Like, I'm cool with that. But when I got back into Star Wars collecting in like 2006 and all like that, I was a lot more selective with what I was buying. I wasn't just buying everything anymore. I was collecting only Jedi and Sith, and they had a bunch of like expanded lore Sith guys and
Yeah.
Jedi. I started collecting Mandalorians because they did start delving into that lore more as well around that time.
I remember that.
Before they started doing the Clone Wars show and what they did with all of that, you had you had the Clone Commandos from the Commandos game that ended up like getting another team that was a book series, and they really built on that whole thing. Like Entertainment Earth had like 2 exclusive packs or whatever of those Commandos, and they had the Commando trainers, which were all Mandalorians, and that was the only way you can get those Mandalorians. They had ones from like the old Marvel comics. They had a couple Mandalorians from that you can get at the time. So I was doing like a Mandalorian collection before what we got now, of course. And I was getting back into toys. This was also around the time my sister gave me a bunch of those Lord of the Ring toys because she was moving again, and she just wasn't carrying the toys with her. She wasn't into collecting them anymore at that time. So I had them, and I had them in a box because I wasn't a big Lord of the Rings collector. I thought they were cool, but I wasn't into them like that, kind of thing. And then, like I said, through different moves or whatever, they disappeared. And, then again, a lot of my stuff kind of went away when I moved I was living in a buddy's basement. I had everything all out on shelves and everything was looking nice. Packed it away in boxes because eventually we lost that house. So then I had to move, and I moved actually into the basement right next door to the house I was living in. But they didn't have all the shelving units and stuff anymore. And they had like a drop ceiling in the basement, which the basement I was living in previously didn't have. So all the shelves that I had were too tall.
Yep. Nice.
And so like I didn't have a place to display everything. They just kind of sat in these boxes. And then I met with my son's mother eventually. And we moved in together. And again, my toys just went into the storage because we're living together. There's no toys out. You can't have your toys all over the place kind of thing. And then as I was still trying to buy a toy here and there as I was working at GameStop at that time, because that was around the time that I'd been working at GameStop for a couple years. I wasn't quite the store manager yet. And when we moved in together, by that time I had been a store manager. So when there'd come a cool toy in, which wasn't a lot, like we were getting like a lot of McFarlane Halo stuff. Excuse me. So but that was about it.
What year would this be? Because your son is only 8, right? 8?
Right. Yeah. When his mother and I got together, that would have been like 2012.
And you did meet his mother before you met him, right?
Well, of course I met his mother before I met him, I had to meet her before I met him.
I have a stepdaughter. My ex and I had never been married. She's 26, 27. I was 97.
Yeah.
And so I would bring up like my daughter, and then I'd watch them. I'm like, it's my ex's daughter. I've raised her. She's my daughter. So sometimes it's easier to say my stepdaughter, but then girls will get you and they're like, no, it's a person that I raised. I didn't know her from the time she was born.
Right.
But I have said that to people before, and they went, or other people have said something, and I'm like, I made that comment, and they're like, well, no, actually, it's not my kid. So it was like, oh, well, all right.
Yep. Well, no, Connor's mom and I knew each other back in high school, and then we were separated like years apart and everything like that, and then reconnected through social media, of course, the wonder that it is. And that's where we ended up talking again. And then we ended up moving in together. And like I said, all my nerd stuff kind of had to go away. I couldn't have it out on display really anymore. But then I kept bringing more of it home from work because I worked in like a nerd central, being GameStop. But then I was like, when I was doing collecting, I was keeping a lot of stuff on Carter in box just because. And she had a daughter from her marriage before we got together. And well, as kids do, when they see a toy, they got to open it.
That's what they're making.
So started destroying and opening up like all kinds of these collector's toys that I had. And I was just like, I give up. I'm done with this thing again. Like, I cannot win.
Wait, so you had collector's toys, and did you let her open them, or was it like?
No, I didn't let her do anything, but I was working as a retail store manager, which is, at most days 12 hours.
Yeah. So basically,
And
she saw toys. Buddy, stop. What
she saw toys.
What are you doing?
And mom don't care or is not paying attention. More than likely not paying attention.
How old was her daughter?
Oh, she was she would have been 4 at the time. She was 3
so
when we moved in.
you're talking prime, like, oh my God, there's a toy.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
that
blame them for
excitement.
anything in their
Never.
minds.
I never blame the little one at all. I mean, I initially get angry, but like, not at her. It's the mom who's not there watching the child and seeing what the hell she's doing.
But we don't. I mean, even at 4,
I'm not gonna harp on Connor's mom or anything like that. I really try not to speak ill will of her or anything. It was just this idea that I couldn't have these things. Who's got the nice shirt? Who are you talking about, Sarge? Oh, it's got to be your shirt. Yeah, now I see it across there. I'm reading it. It is a nice shirt. I say mine's just blue until I stand up and you see it's Masters.
Cool.
I figured I'd bring some Masters of the Universe to your channel. Because I know most of your fans are G.I. Joe guys. Most of your viewers are G.I. Joe fans. So
I have a Masters of the Universe. I have a Masters of the Universe shirt. I do not have a G.I. Joe shirt.
That's saying something there.
I bought one from BJ's, which is like Costco, because it was like $10. I don't know what kind of large it was, but it was not a large for a man. So I gave it to my daughter.
They never are.
Olivia, you want this? Because
they are like never cut right. Like, the body type and the size of most of the guys that are looking at this stuff, and it's like, why are your shirts cut extra small?
There's a lot of people that think I wear really tight shirts, like to show off how big I am. And I try and explain, I'm like, listen, I'm like 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. I wear larges. I can't wear an extra large because then I'm swimming in it.
Well, then it's down to your knees. It looks more like a dress at that point.
I have to wear larges, and this sounds kind of egotistical, but last year I kind of looked up, like, what is the average size of an adult's arms? And I'm like, oh, now I see why I filled them out. I look at myself, I don't think of myself as that big. But then when I look at the average size of a man's arms, and they're like, an adult arm is like 13 inches, and you're going, oh, so this is why little old me looks like I'm filling out these shirts.
So 20 inches, that's above normal. I got it now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
I'm not, like, everything is solid on me. So,
for me, I've always been a big guy. So I forget and when I say big guy, it's like I've always been a little above average in height.
Yeah.
A little above average in build, whether it was muscle or fat. And that's just always how I've been. So I never know what it's like to be normal anything. And it's true. It's true. When we all met, I know Lawrence has joked about it on his channel forever, and since I've watched, and it was a different experience getting to meet him, but he didn't quite hit my shoulder. But then again, I'm a little taller than most. I think that was the other thing with Mega J. Like, I'm walking around, me and Mega J are about the same height. I'm a little bit taller, and didn't realize the heights of so many other people. Like, because when you see us in these boxes,
You don't
We
know.
all kind of look around the same. Like you can't tell whether somebody's taller or shorter. And then I'm walking around and meeting people and I'm like, oh, you're a little bit here. You're a little bit here. And it's just like, I never feel tall, but I felt tall at PowerCon.
Like I said, I don't think people realize how short I am when I tell people how short I am till you actually see how
Right.
short I actually am. But people look at me because I'm wider from working out that
You got
they
the wide
like they're like,
building
oh, you're not that
shoulders.
short. And I'm like, it's because I'm not standing right next to you. If I stood right next to Ed and talked to him like this, you'd be like, you're super short. As a short guy, you learn you stand away, so you have to look up on an angle, but you're not looking up like this.
Yeah, it's like sitting at the front row at the movie theater. You know, do you sit in the very front
Yes.
seat at the movie theater? No. You sit in the mid to
Yeah.
back so that way you're not like this the whole movie.
Yep.
This is not a stage play. Front row is not a good place to be. That's all there is to it.
I forget what we were talking about.
Just shit.
We were talking about Connor's mom.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Losing all your stepdaughter ripping up all your toys.
All of my toys, getting into all my stuff.
But you got to play with them, right? When you were like, well, now I'm liberated.
I wish that was the case. But what do 4-year-olds do with toys? They either break them, lose the pieces, and it's like, where did it go? How did you lose? Never know. I ended up giving all of those to her, by the way. She had a really cool toy collection for a 4-year-old, mind you.
So was this before your son was born?
Yeah, this was all before he was born. He was born 2015. He was born in February. So it was like she was pregnant with him at the time. You know, because we were together for a couple of years. At that point in time, I had recently given up drinking. You know, just before that, which I was finally sober. Doing all these things in life where, you know, you think you're happy because you should be happy because you're settling down, you got the family. I didn't realize that I was just actually way worse off in depression than I thought I was.
Okay.
You know, that was a big thing for me. My mom had a lot of mental health issues and it ran within my family. So I knew what people with mental health issues looked like. And I refused to believe that I was anything like them because I wasn't. So I ignored it. And like I said, I did things like self-medicate, like drink. I didn't realize that was necessarily what I was doing at the time, but it is, in hindsight now, I look back at it and I know that's exactly what I was doing. You know, so I've realized over time how tall are Ted and Aaron. Ted was what, a little bit taller than you?
Maybe 5'5", 5'6".
Right. And I know Aaron was about the same height as me.
Yeah. And Aaron's black and Ted is white, if you guys didn't know.
Shit. Aaron's black?
I know.
I had no idea.
I know. Yeah, I was actually surprised at how short Ted was. I always thought Ted was the taller one too.
Right? Like I thought Ted was probably going to be about my height. And I don't know, maybe it's because of the way the hat is and where his camera is positioned when he streams, but
yeah,
you know.
Yes. Yeah, Ted is fairly short. I mean, I don't like calling one short because
whoa.
But I mean, it is an accurate depiction that they are short. He's short, and Aaron's not tall, but he's not considered short. Ted would be considered short.
Right. Well, no, as he stated in the chat here, he says he's 5'6", average height. Yeah, 5'6", 5'7", I think is about average.
I don't know because I'm not average.
I'm 5'10", 5'11", depending on what convenience store I'm walking out of at the time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that line.
I mean, because it's true. Depending on what convenience store I'm walking out of, I'm either, you know, I was 6 foot in high school, but bad posture and my bump card from getting into wrestling and stuff like that. I am definitely no, I'm not.
So
6 foot anymore.
I'm not saying 5'6" is super short, but 5'6" is short for a man. I am super short for a man.
There you go.
Okay.
There you have it. Like I said, I'm just above average. I'm not like ginormously tall or anything like that. I'm not freaking Alpha Magnus, who I'm pretty sure was like 7'2", even outside of his cosplay.
No, you didn't. I didn't look at you as like being super. I mean, you were big, but you're big all around. But like, I didn't look at you as like someone super tall. I didn't see you as Earthquake or Typhoon.
No, not those guys.
You know, you don't realize how big professional wrestlers are.
Till you're standing next to them. Yeah, I was short for a wrestler.
When you find out Hulk Hogan was 6'8", and you're like,
well, it's like
he was 6'8", looking up at Andre the Giant.
Well, here's the thing: like when they measure, like Kane. Kane, he's measured in at 7 feet tall. He's actually like 6'8".
He's taller than that.
He's
not
like
6'10".
I was gonna say it's not by much.
No,
they always add a couple inches.
It's usually a couple inches. But again, when you're looking at like they say they're 7 foot.
Yeah.
So like I think they say the Undertaker was 7'1", but he comes in at 6'11".
They always
6'11" is huge.
They always kept him at just under 7 feet because Kane was supposed to be a little bit taller than him.
Okay.
So he was just under the 7 foot mark because Kane was the tall 7-footer, like Kevin Nash was, or Diesel was the 7-footer.
But he's actually 6'11", I think.
Right. Yeah.
Which is huge.
6'11". It is. He towers over me. That's somebody that stands a whole 12 inches above me. That's a tall motherfucker.
And he is from Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah. He is really one of the coolest. He's always been my favorite wrestler since I was a kid. Just something about the whole gimmick from 1990. Like it totally stole me. Even when he did the reinvention of American Badass, a lot of people hated it at first. I thought it was great because
I think like Kevin Nash.
Well, Kevin Nash was cool too, but Undertaker was always my favorite.
The Undertaker versus the fake Undertaker crush.
That was one of the most hilarious matches I ever remember watching.
Did that happen here?
Was that at WrestleMania? So we can look it up.
No, did it happen at WrestleMania?
Thought so. Oh no, it was the 90s. I can't remember. I remember more of the 80s than the 90s, and that's wrong.
Because I know, I remember watching Lex Luger slam Yokozuna here, but he rolled out of the ring, so he didn't win the title.
That was it. So it was SummerSlam 94.
Where was that at? Was it in Detroit?
Pulling it up now.
Oh.
Just because I can.
And I can't. Believe me.
It was at the United Center in Chicago.
Oh, okay. There was something that The Undertaker did here. I don't remember exactly. I mean, we've seen so many. Well, you see so many things. Obviously, I remember WrestleMania. I don't remember WrestleMania 23, but I remember WrestleMania 3.
Never been to a WrestleMania in person. I've never been one in person. I would love to go.
Travis, Mr. Wonderful, earmuffs. They're not really worth it. When you watch wrestling on TV, you're hearing the announcers, you're hearing everything. Oh, yeah. When you go watch wrestling, all you hear is the mat bounce. I think it's very uneventful.
I've been to many a show with less production value.
The ECW was fun here, literally in a basketball hall.
ECW was one of the most amazing wrestling federations of all time, period. One
of the biggest pieces of shit ever, but it was so.
I still remember when you had to buy it on tape because you couldn't really watch it aired on TV, and it was doing everything that WWE was going to do 2 years from now. It was a lot.
Wait a minute. You weren't really there, were you?
Wait a minute. The fact that he's saying Sean beat Brett fair is square.
He did. Hey, Oh no, okay. Oh no, oh yes, that's the one in Texas. That was the Iron Man match where Shawn
Okay,
actually
yeah.
went more than an hour to beat Brett, and then later on in life he made him tap out.
Where's Ken? Is Ken in the
Yeah,
audience
Ken, where
watching
are
this
you?
right now?
You just
Let's
talked to me
get
for like
Ken
an
in here
hour
right now.
before the show. Where are you now? Yeah, you knew Travis was going to come on here. You knew what we were going to be talking about. I
This is what
literally
I
was
love.
talking to Ken for about an hour before this.
Love Ken.
Oh, it was in
Love Ken.
Cali.
Always have good conversations.
Okay, wait a minute. Where
Yeah,
did
so it's not the screwdriver. Yeah, he's talking Iron Man.
no? The screw job was in Montreal. I don't know
Yeah.
how,
Yeah,
but
we
the
all know
Iron
that
Man
one was
match,
there.
the Iron Man match when Shawn came in was in the Alamo Dome because it was in his hometown. So not only did he beat Brett in his hometown, then he went and beat Brett in his home country. Made him tap in his own man. It just gets worse and worse. I don't blame Ken for not being here. How did this get out?
I don't care. I'm all for it because I love talking old wrestling. All for it. And
What am
this
I
is something we
missing?
don't often do on my channel. We're gonna have a stream with like all these wrestling heads getting in and just talking about
Okay,
amazing stuff.
all right. So okay. So wait, I gotta figure.
You know,
Where did Shawn Michaels come in? Didn't he win in the Alamo Dome? What am I missing? Because there was something in the Alamo Dome because they made a huge thing of it. Mr. Wonderful, you got to know this, right? The professional wrestler that's not named after Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, something I still can't understand.
Royal Rumble. He did the Royal Rumble at the Alamo Dome. Shawn
Who did he
Michaels
beat?
defeats Psycho Sid, win the WWF Championship.
Okay, then I'm
97.
all right. Then I apologize. I'm getting things mixed up. I do remember the Iron Man match. I was thinking that was in the Alamo Dome.
You know what I will say?
Yes, the Alamo was famous for something else.
Remember the Alamo? Well, he does, okay?
I
Just
believe it's
incorrectly.
like one
It's
of the
okay.
only movies John Wayne dies in.
Everybody died that one.
Yeah. My dad's a
So-
huge John Wayne fan, so I remember it's one of the few ones.
Is there anybody else mad? Like, did anybody else get into the WWE network like when it launched? And it was cool because now you could pay $10 a month for the pay-per-view versus the $60 or $70 you used to pay for it, and you got extras, right? And then like finally over years they built up the back catalog. I'm going through and I'm in ecstasy watching all the older ones and all the older matches. And then they moved everything to what was it, Peacock or whatever? And they got rid of the entire like old library of all the old like I was
no,
watching matches that I had forgotten about.
I like this. Sid Vicious, greatest world champion from West Memphis, Arkansas, and maybe the greatest softball player from there too.
Ooh, see, I didn't know about the softball career.
Oh, you didn't know like the rumors of him in softball? Like he would just
Dude.
disappear to go play softball. Like he's big into softball.
I can kind of see that.
When
Like
he
I
wasn't
can see.
snapping his leg jumping off the second rope.
Ooh, that is still the most brutal freaking thing I've
That's one of those things where like
watched.
anytime I see him on that rope, and I don't remember what match it is, I look away. I'm like, nope. And then you kind of peer back. It's like, is he on the ground? Oh, yep. This is the match.
Yep. And just every time I see it, I gotta watch it, and then like I immediately start grabbing my leg. But yeah,
Mr. Wonderful. If you get me started on like the late 80s into the 90s into the 2000s, yes. Nowadays, I just know that Roman Reigns is still the champion for the past 84 years.
is he still champion? I can't keep up. I don't really watch it as much anymore. All I know is that Terry Funk died like 2 weeks ago, and Bray Wyatt died.
He died 2 days before we did Roadhouse.
That like literally is like some of the worst news, because if there was one modern day talent that I love to watch consistently in the ring, is Bray Wyatt. What he did with the Wyatt family.
I did not realize who his dad was.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
what happened.
The whole
And then I
rotunda
think I
family
had heard
eventually.
it after, but I was like, Erwin R. Shyster. God.
Well, it was like, when he was first coming up and he was doing the whole Bray Wyatt and the Fireflies thing. And then I didn't realize that like this little scrawny kid, Bo Dallas, comes in, that was his brother. And then like I went back and I started looking in more into Bray Wyatt and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and then realizing like Jack Black, Mulligan, and everything like that, like looking at the
Yeah.
lineage there. And it's like, oh, this is really good, because like there are a couple of like legacy families that just
Well,
carry on generation after
the
generation
moment you
through the
see a
business.
Samoan, you're like, oh, they're related to the
They're
Rock.
related to The Rock. That's right.
Yeah.
I prefer to think of it as they're related to Rikishi because he's like central and like everybody like
Well,
around him.
I always laugh when they say that The Rock is a third generation wrestler, and it's like, not really, because his grandfather isn't his dad's father.
No, it's his mother's father.
Yeah.
So it's a weird.
Well, he's not really a third generation,
Yeah,
but
I see what you're saying. Like passed down from
his
grandfather on the
mom,
father's side.
like they were
Well, she was
involved
in the
in it,
business.
but
Yeah,
it's
the
just
whole
kind of
family's been
weird. And
there. Yeah, it's
uh,
it's kind of abstract, but I gotta say, like overall, that everybody says
Rick
like,
is dropping names here.
yeah, he is because Brick's got that.
Did
He's
you get a
got that
stink face
connection.
from him?
That they teach it in gym in PE. They teach how to do the stink face properly. So that you can get maximum smellage, how you can get the nose creviced all the way up in there.
I mean, I know we're going off topic here, but I got to say this.
Oh,
I
good.
know there have been so many things that have come out about Vince McMahon. And I don't know what's true, what's not. Listen, I think to make that much money, to become a self-made billionaire,
Well,
you
yeah,
can't be
because
the
his
greatest
dad was
person.
running just one small
Yeah, and he bought it
territory.
from him. And like no one had any idea what he was going to do, but that guy took the stink face. He did everything that he asked his wrestlers to do.
Yeah.
Everything,
Well,
including
yeah,
including what I was just talking about, Shawn Michaels doing that zip line. He did it because
he also tore both of his like the injuries too. He tore both of his quads just running into the ring.
And so went on with it.
Still
He's like
rolling around, crawling around in the ring, getting himself like gimped as all hell, still in there,
just
freaking
to
mad as
tear
hell.
one quad, but both quads jumping in the ring, which they've probably done 100 times
all the time.
and the fact that they just snapped. And I don't know if you have you ever seen the match between Hunter and Y2J where Hunter tears his quad, and he said it was like someone unzipped it. That's how he explained it. It was someone unzipped his quad and it just went up his leg. And he had him in the Lion Tamer. Like Chris Jericho had him in the Lion Tamer. Did he change the name of it?
The Walls of Jericho would have been at that time.
Yeah. Right? But oh my gosh,
definitely.
So this obviously was before Chris Benoit. Anyway, I make jokes and then people get all mad at me and say I shouldn't, but I didn't kill my family. Anyway,
he had a lot of demons. It is what it is. It's in the past. We can't do anything about it. He's one of the best technical wrestlers of all time. You can't really dispute that, but he did terrible things.
He was. And you know what? The people that get mad that he's not in the Hall of Fame, it's like, you know what? He doesn't deserve to be there. O.J. Simpson is in the Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame, because he was inducted before he murdered 2 people. Yeah, whatever. Allegedly, I knocked up my ex and had 2 kids with her too.
Quitted.
Yeah, acquitted. The glove does not fit. You must acquit. And then the guy gets thrown in jail for literally going to get his merchandise back.
Steal his own merch back. What a baller!
He
couldn't even afford to buy it anymore.
That is karma. All right.
I still remember, like, okay, it's been a couple years, OJ's out of the news. OJ is in the news again. Well, what did he do this time? He tried to steal back his own merch. I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I don't
I
think
think
I've ever heard of a celebrity trying to steal their merch
that's
back.
his own merch. Yeah, like you could just go to the cops and go, "They took my merch."
Right?
And the cops were like, "Did you murder them?" Like they would have just said, "Did you murder them?" No, I didn't murder them. I'm looking for the murderer. So,
oh,
this really went off the rails.
yeah, it did. We've completely gone way off topic for me, but it's okay. We're showing our age, talking about news events that all kids today are like, orange juice? Who are these guys talking about?
No, people still know who OJ
They
is.
do. Oh yeah, he made history with that court case.
You know what makes me so mad about OJ, other than he murdered 2 people? That I feel bad when I laugh at the Naked Gun and his parts, because he had some amazing parts in the Naked Gun.
Yeah. Well, the Naked Gun's amazing.
When he catches the baby and he celebrates, and he
got that spike. And again, laughing about the fact that somebody just spiked the baby. We know it's a movie. It's a movie.
Okay, Sean said it best. When you dodge a verdict, best to keep one's nose clean. Yes, like
exactly, which makes the audacity of him stealing his own merch.
Yeah, or you think that, like, well, if I just killed 2 people and they couldn't convict me, what are they going to do about me getting my merchandise back?
Right.
Again, there's been some karma over the, Bill Cosby. I knew about Bill Cosby for a long time because of a radio station, and it didn't come out until. And it was like, I remember all about this. There's been books written. Why is
I was going to say, like, 97, 98, I think was the first time I ever heard it talked about on a radio program. But it was like a morning show where they were talking about it.
Same here, like that.
And, I was like, oh, my Dr. Huxtable he's been handing out some crazy medication. It came out later that, yeah, he did do all of that. And, it's kind of like, ooh. But yet I would still go back and listen to all of his records because they were funny as shit. And the Cosby kids were fucking hysterical.
Yes,
I still watch the Cosby Show.
We do realize the wealthy are used to getting their way.
That is very true. Yes, they are used to getting their way, which is why it's so funny when it goes off the rails and they don't.
I watched something on
like watching Lindsay Lohan.
No, the guy from That 70s Show that's in jail now.
Oh, Marston?
Yeah.
Danny Marston? That sucked too, because he was like my favorite character. And then when it came out about him doing all that crap and then the smuggling of drugs and everything, like, wait a minute. So you're trying to beat this rape, sexual assault charge thing, and you think it's a good idea to continue other illicit activities.
And I did you ever watch The Ranch on?
Oh yeah, yeah.
They killed him off without killing him off, because I remember hearing it. I was like, how come none of this came out? And then of course YouTube took me down the road of Scientology, and you go, I'm so glad my man Tom isn't in any of this because he makes damn good movies, and I don't need him behind bars. Especially not before this last Mission Impossible.
Look. Okay, I gotta say this: the South Park episode on Scientology was like so far ahead of its time.
I'm gonna get into that.
Oh man, that was such a good episode. And like I remember they were like threatened to take it down, not air it, they'll be destroyed. Still pumping out new episodes of South Park today.
South Park is one thing that still gets away with things they shouldn't.
Yep.
Because people realize what it is.
They came out with such shock and awe at the beginning.
Yes.
I mean, their very first thing was an animated short about Jesus Christ and Santa Claus versus one another for the symbol of Christmas, which, it's like when you come out the door swinging with this, and then you somehow manage to get your show on network television.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's prime time, but you are saying you've got kids running around talking about dildos, and like then kids that are watching this are now talking about dildos because they heard it on South Park, and you still manage to keep your show on the air without it getting pulled down. Like, there's at a certain point where you just really do, like, you feel untouchable and you realize you are kind of untouchable. Now, I've watched it in waves. So it's like, I'll watch it for a while
I
because
haven't
it's
watched
really
it in
funny and on
years.
part. At this point, neither have I.
Yeah.
You know, like when it first came out, I was all about it. Then I kind of fell out of it because it just kind of got or maybe the satire, the news at the time wasn't enough to keep the show entertaining.
Yeah.
And then like a couple of years later, I was all back in, and South Park was like dead on point with everything. And then I got out of it, and then I'd get back in, and it's kind of been the way of it. But South Park's been on the air now, not, of course, not as long as The Simpsons, but
Which is another one that,
oh my God, Simpsons is again just gold.
I haven't watched Simpsons in 20 years. I got together with my ex. She didn't like it, so I just kind of stopped watching it. Yeah. But I feel like I know everything that's always happened.
You do, because people talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched The Simpsons. I don't think I've watched anything new from The Simpsons since the movie. And that's been over 10 years ago at this point.
And what's crazy about The Simpsons is Bret Hart was on it, and he tapped out to Bart Simpson, too. Oh. Guy's just always tapping out to everyone.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, Ken, if you were here, you could have defended yourself.
Yeah, it's true. True. If Ken were watching tonight.
Travis is sitting there dying laughing. The other 18 people are like, what the hell is this show
about? Why does he keep bringing about Bret Hart? We have no idea what we're talking about anymore. We've devolved into a late night, early morning radio talk show. You have no idea what the hosts are talking about, but you're still listening. Oh, I heard she kind of tapped out herself these days.
She killed someone, man.
Did she?
Yeah, drunk driving.
Oh, no kidding. So
yeah, so I don't.
She's probably still serving time then.
I think she went back to prison, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
She was
last I heard, she was making porn now, and it's like this isn't.
She did the porn, then she came back, and
right, like this was not Sunny from the heyday. So
yeah, she is locked up. When you really hear her story, it is pretty sad because like
it's tragic.
Her and the other body, Donna, Skip, Zip, whatever, Trish Candido. They started off really clean, and then they got into it, and it's just like it's sad when you let things happen to you, and it's easy for people. I mean, I've seen really good people come from good families that get stuck on drugs, and it's like, hey, it's not just people from the hood that end up on heroin and
crack. Not at all. Not at all. It can happen to anybody at any time. It's rampant in the wrestling world, especially from the 80s and 90s. Those guys were prescribed basically anything they wanted to keep them in the ring every freaking week, working every week all the time. And you know what? Like, they get addicted. And it happened to so many of them. It still happens. I'm not going to act like it doesn't happen now. Look at Jeff Hardy.
We were talking about steroids before and how I'm like, I think steroids I think should be legal, but I go, steroids aren't what's killing wrestlers. It's the steroids and the coke, and the killers and the drinking and being like, bodybuilders aren't dropping dead, and these guys are abusing steroids. Some have died, yes,
of course. There's always that percentage. It's a numbers game.
But wrestlers are dying because it's a mixture of stuff that and there's no one, there's nothing to really stop them.
Yep.
And, there's always going to be one more person. And here's Brick popping in with his straight edge, which I always have to promote because
that's right, man.
47 years.
Power to you, man.
Steroids right now, but that's from
Again, it's different because that is a drug that has been prescribed to you. It's not considered not being straight edge when you're taking a prescription from your doctor.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well,
And as long as you're taking it as prescribed as well.
Yeah, but there's that staunch ones that's like no caffeine and no meat. I'm like, fuck you, man. I want a good old steak.
Nope. Never ever. You will never get me to cut out the caffeine.
It's hard.
Like, okay, I gave up drinking. Fine. I haven't had an alcohol 13 years. I would like to be able to quit smoking, but it is extremely difficult. It's one of my toughest vices I've ever had. And coffee. Coffee will never stop.
My mom bought us the first set of dirt that you could get random.
That first edition dirt. It's worth like, 4 grams.
Right now, yes. Yes, right now, wonderful. Yes. Not so much by choice, though.
Right.
So, okay, so where the hell were we before we got?
Oh God, I got no idea. So we're talking about my son being born. Yeah, it was around that time.
So we made it into the 2010s.
Right. 2015. Connor's born. Probably the second proudest day of my life is the day my son's born. First proudest day of my life was when I graduated from high school. I was so proud of myself for that.
Okay, can I ask you this? Now, I know some people right now are going, really? Are you really proud that I don't know if she was your wife or not, had your kid? You didn't really do anything but plant the seed. She did all the work.
Hey, man.
You're proud to have him, but
takes 2 to tango.
I tell my kids all the time, like when they want something for their birthday, I'm like, I'm just going to tell you right now, you should be getting your mom a birthday gift because she's the one that had to push you out.
I'll give
you
you that.
You don't deserve one really until you push out a kid,
Well, bearing children is certainly no joke. And Connor's mom was in labor for 48 hours. No joke. Just to have an emergency C-section about 6 hours before the scheduled C-section. But that's because when Connor was coming out, he had his head tucked against his shoulder like this, and they could not get him out. And so, that was, it was a big thing. But I bonded with Connor like very, very quickly because they stitched his mom back up. And she had that skin-to-skin time that they try to do right after the baby's born. Then they had to go take Connor for testing. And I was like, can I come? And they were like, yeah. So, like, for the first 3 weeks of his life, there was not a second that he was out of my sight or without, not within my reach.
Yeah.
I never left his side up until I had to go back to work. And I was helping take care of his mom, of course, too, because she needed the help with the recovery and everything. But mostly she just appreciated the fact that I was doing everything for Connor because she was able to rest and recover from just having surgery and everything else. So, it was one of those things where that was one of the best moments of my life becoming a dad. I'd always wanted to be a dad. And he has been my pride and joy ever since.
So I gotta say this, like, I always, as a parent, I hate when someone tells me that doesn't have kids that says, oh, I know how you feel. I have dogs or I have cats. And I'm like, don't you ever compare your love to your cat or your dog to my kid. And people kind of get mad about it. I'm like, let me explain this to you. If someone walked up with a gun and stuck it in front of my kid's face, I would step in front of that gun. If somebody put a bullet or a gun in front of my head, I expect this guy here to fucking charge him and take the bullet for me. That's the difference between... But people do it all the time. And I'm like, you not love your cat as much as I love my kid. And I remember, like, the first time I holding Andrew, and you're just like, I would kill for you. Like, if somebody can, I like, and again, it's not insulting anyone that doesn't have kids
No,
because
not at all.
a lot of people think that it's like I'm not insulting, but don't insult me by saying I love my dogs as much as you love your kids. No, you don't. No, you don't, because you know what, your dog's gonna die, and you're gonna get another one next week. I don't birth another kid, if God forbid something was to happen.
No parent, no parent ever recovers, and no kid can ever replace. Well, not even replace, but no kid can fill those shoes.
Yeah,
it's just how it is. And I like Cobb's distinction here. You ask if you can pet my kid, I'm smacking you. And any parent will absolutely agree with that. You can walk up and pet somebody else's dog that may be absolutely fine and normal. You walk up and try to pet somebody's kid, you're going to jail. Yep. That's true too. It was right around that time too. Where I was like, nope. All right. I'm out of here.
All right, so you have Connor. How do you think your life changed after you had
everything
Connor
changed.
came along? And...
Absolutely everything changed. I mean, up until that point, like, even though I was trying to do the settle down family thing, I wasn't quite necessarily there yet.
Yeah.
And then at that point, everything switched, and I was just like, okay, I'm a dad now. It's all about doing family stuff and trying to, be better for the family type thing. And, then we went through a big rough patch because it was Connor just turned a year old. We just got a new van because Jen's car was just, she's lived in Florida, never got into an accident, came back to Baltimore, and within those couple of years, got into like 4 different accidents in her car. Only a handful of which were her fault.
Only a handful.
Only a handful of accidents.
So that's more than 2. Or at least more than 1.
In any case, it is just time we need a new vehicle, so we got this new van. And then GameStop's all like, you just had one of the best, most amazing Christmas holiday seasons ever. Your store was doing something that no other store in the district could do. Bye. Because as retail does, they figured they could find somebody to pay less money to live off of the groundwork that I laid and the business that I established, and was like, okay, now we'll find somebody cheaper to carry on where you were, because we're paying you a lot of money. And now that you've pinnacled, we think you've pinnacled here. We don't think your store is ever going to do any higher. We can't move you to another store, so you're gone. And that's the reality.
Which to me, that makes no sense. Like, if you saw someone that had brought a store somewhere, wouldn't you be like, hey, you know what? We want to bring in someone to take over where you're at, to maintain it, and we want you to move over to this store that's not doing that well and figure out what did you do. Now, again, I understand it's ups and downs, because if PlayStation and games, Xbox aren't making games, but
it sucked. But the reality of it is, at that point, this had been like my 4th holiday season where I just wanted to start spending more time with my family, less time at the store. And pretty much after October, going into November, December, you're at the store pretty much 7 days a week. You're off like Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and then they tell you, "Ooh, guys, you get off New Year's Day." like 3 days in like 4 months. And I was pretty much working double shifts through all of that. They're like, no, it was not going to work for me and the family life anymore. So I was like, gonna move on anyway, but I figured I could take my time, look for something, that's going to be decent, something that's really going to elevate where I'm at. And then I got terminated 2 months after. And I'm like, oh shit, now I got to really step up this looking for a job thing. So I was unemployed for a while. However, I will say that was probably one of the best opportunities and one of the most amazing times of my life, in the fact that to wake up every day and spend time with my son. So like we're waking up every day, you know, feeding him, changing him, cleaning up, doing everything with him, being a stay-at-home dad, which not a lot of dads ever truly get to experience.
No, no.
And that was a lot of fun. That's where most of our bonding time really happened, was me and him hanging out doing this. I would build him forts, and like, he was totally in heaven in these forts, and we'd hang out and just have fun together. What a pair. And so I was looking for a job. It was tough. I couldn't find anything for a long time. Finally, one of my old contacts at GameStop, who had moved on, they were working at PayPal, hit me up, and they were like, "Hey, come work for us."
PayPal?
Yeah, yeah. So I ended up, you know, going from having this really cool time at home with my son, again, doing the family man kind of thing, taking care of everything, doing the, like, I was a domesticated house bitch, but, it worked. Not to mention the fact that I was a freaking chef. So there was always good hot meals cooked every single day. I say chef. The truth is I'm just really good cook.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could follow like recipes. I can make up my own recipes, but I'm not a chef. I was never professionally trained. Got accepted to culinary school, but was never trained. So, and that's because knives are really fucking expensive.
I kind of know that only because
Yeah.
the copy machines that we service are Kyocera, which is a
Okay.
huge ceramic.
Yep.
And people don't realize they make, I guess, amazing ceramic knives that never really need to be sharpened. But
Yeah.
they give them out to their people, like for Christmas gifts. Like they'll get a knife, and I know our old rep would be like, "Yeah, you can say a lot about the copiers, but man, the knives are just like so damn good."
Right, dude. I almost got roped into one of those. Was it? Oh, what? I cannot remember the name of the knife company anymore. But I got roped. No, it was one of these upside down funnel marketing schemes.
Okay.
The pyramid schemes. Oh, there it is. Travis said it. Cutco Cutlery. That's it. And they had like some ceramic knives out there and all like that. I almost got roped up into those guys. I mean, mind you, the knives were great. Don't get me wrong. Just the whole business model's bullshit. Bullshit. Like, I'm a great salesman. I really am. Got to be to run a successful retail store, but absolutely cannot stand any kind of business like that. But yeah. So anyway, back to PayPal. I was working as a, getting back into PayPal. Now, the worst part about that is when I got hired, it was a night shift. Right. So I'm working from 1 all the way up until 9:30 because I worked on the phones there too. It's funny, for a guy who doesn't like talking to people a lot on the phone, I went on the phone a lot for work. It's probably one of the reasons why I hate talking on the phone as much as I do now.
I hope so.
I really do too, because I would hate to think that I wasted all that time watching those infomercials for Ginsu and they aren't a thing anymore.
I quickly want to say something about Ginsu because I will never forget this. When we were in high school, everyone was spending the night at my house. It was me and like 3 of my buddies who skated. And I still had all my G.I. Joe stuff. And this one kid, he had one of the most amazing nights of his life. And he started going through the G.I. Joe figures, doing infomercials. And he was using Destro as Grace Jones. And then he had grabbed Storm Shadow's swords and was going through the whole Ginsu knife like infomercial. I wish, like, that's one of those things I wish I could just relive for like one day and have that recorded, because he was one of those guys that he was funny at times, but it was his night. Like that night, he owned it. But I just remember the Grace Jones. So every time I see Destro, like every time I see my O-ring Destro, I think of Grace Jones. And then I think of the Ginsu, like his whole act, and I can't even remember. But he 100 miles an hour faster than I talk. I mean, he's just going, and we're just in tears. And you got these. I'm like, we're teenagers. I just had this box of G.I. Joes, so I still had my stuff out because they didn't care. and he's just going through them all. Like, and I didn't have a fear of a thumb breaking or crotch breaking or nothing.
The
I wouldn't be
plastic
like that.
wasn't
We'll be
as
like that
brittle yet.
today.
The plastic today is absolute brittle, so you gotta be careful if you blow on it too hard if it won't shatter.
But that was it. I just had to say that because every time I hear Ginsu knives, that's what I think of. So, all right. So you're working at PayPal.
We're gonna PayPal, working this night shift. I gotta take 2 buses and a train to get there because it's in this area of town where it's just not easy for me to get to. So I gotta take one bus to get to another bus, and then I take a light rail train all the way to another part of town so that I can get to work. But I'm employed. The money's kind of decent. I wasn't doing great at first because of where they all start you off at, but I was working this night shift. So here I am. I wake up in the morning, help Jen get the kids ready, get the kids off to the babysitter, daughter off to school. Then I get dropped off. She runs to work. Now during the day, I got nobody at home, but still got all the responsibilities to do. So I'm making sure, getting all the clothes washed, getting that done, getting dinner prepped. So that way when she gets home, she can finish up with whatever needs to be done, help the kids, not seeing anything. After a while, uh, you know, things go south. I'm not going to get into the details because I don't need to put all that business out here on the internet.
No, we're not here to talk about how bad your love life is.
Yeah,
I've been single for 8 years, so
yeah, no, there's not worth talking about that. Things go south. It puts me in a really, really dark spot. I'm still working at PayPal though. Still not quite acknowledging where I'm at with my mental state, other than I know I'm in a dark place. But at this point, like, I'm not really, like, I don't think of it as depression. I just think I just watched my life that I've been building for the last several years fall apart in front of me.
I gotta say that is rough. Like I know
Oh,
when
man.
my ex and I split, it takes a long time to look back at the happy stuff that you did, and and remember that it's happy because you're like,
Yeah.
we did that, and now I have all awful memories, and so I never went to the dark place. I've never suffered from depression. I mean, I've been depressed, but I've never suffered from. There's a big difference between. I think you know that.
Yeah.
Someone that is depressed and someone that is just someone that's suffering from depression and someone that's just kind of depressed because they haven't got laid in a little while. Um, so I've never been there, and I've seen people be there, so I know. I don't know what they're doing, but I know the difference. But
Yeah.
right, like when you get to that point, you're like, all these good, happy things that we did, like
Everything's tarnished.
yeah, you
Everything.
think everything's ruined, and years later you can look back at it and be like, oh, that was a good time that we had together. But at that
Yeah.
moment, you're like,
Yeah. At that point, like, everything is trashed. Everything is
yeah,
shit. Um, move in with one of my best friends, living with him and his family and all like that. And that actually helped. Like, that really did help for a while because, like, I'd just been in this family environment. I watched it get stripped away, but I was still in this family environment. So I wasn't like on my own, you know? Like, if I'd been on my own at that point in time, that would have been a really bad thing. So being in this family and, enjoying that and spending time with them, and eventually got my own place, had a really nice setup. I've been working for PayPal. Now I'm starting to make some money at PayPal because the hourly rate was okay, but the real money was in bonuses. But I got to say, I had one of the shittiest jobs you could ever have. All right. Everybody in the chat, anything that you think about me or you're feeling about me is about to completely go away because I was a bill collector for PayPal. I was that asshole. I'm the motherfucker calling you up at 8 a.m. saying, I'm calling you to collect a debt. Nobody likes that guy. Everybody hates that guy. Whether you know you owe the money, whether you think you owe money, whether you have no idea you owe anybody money, nobody likes that phone call. And it don't matter what day of the week it is. They can call you 7 days a week. They can call you as early as 8 a.m. and whatever your time zone is, all the way up until 9 p.m. whatever your fucking time zone is. It's all legal. It ain't illegal. Okay. So guess what? You're getting them calls. It's probably because you owe somebody some fucking money. Just gonna say it. Even whether you know it or not, they got your name on a piece of paper that says you owe them money. So they're gonna be making calls. It was a shitty job. And I gotta say, like, the people I worked at PayPal with were amazing. They were some of the most amazing individuals I've ever met in my life. They were incredible. The culture at PayPal was great, except for the part where it was like, I need my fucking money. That part sucked. You know, I get somebody on the phone. I'll never forget, like, one of the absolute worst days of my life happened because I talked to one woman on the phone. Call her up, say the whole spiel, say I'm here to collect the debt. And she was like, well, good fucking luck, because I just got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. My chemo treatments are through the roof. And I've got to figure out what I'm going to eat for the next month. So fuck you and your payment. Now, mind you, no matter what they say to us, we are told, still try to collect the debt. I've just basically been told by this person she doesn't give a fuck because she's going to die. And she's got to figure out what she's going to be eating or how she's going to afford food. She is definitely not worried about PayPal. But yet that's my job. I got to call these people up and collect money. Mind you, that's not every case. As a matter of fact, I will tell you the absolute worst people we ever had to collect the debt on, but you always felt really good when you moved the balance and you collected that debt. Timeshares. Because most
oh my God,
of the
if I hear the
people
timeshare guy one more time trying to get people out of him. Have you heard that on the radio? The guy that's...
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
There's
this time...
this guy
timeshare
is trying to get people out.
I'll
tell you, they need them. They need them.
No, he talks about it. If you listen to Jim Rome, if you're into sports, you listen to Jim Rome, one of his commercials play all the time. I hear him on the radio all the time, like the commercial. He's trying to get you out of your timeshare because there's nothing you can do about it. And you leave this down to your family and your kids. And I know because I used to sell the timeshares. And I'm like, all right, dude, I got it. You want to get me out of timeshare? But I don't have one because I'm broke. Because I buy toys.
Right. So the timeshare guys, because I mean, most of us are at the age now where we've probably been somewhere where one of these guys has tried to wine and dine us and finesse us into getting this timeshare so you can get a bonus or whatever.
Just use my dad's timeshare to go to Florida.
Yeah, your dad's timeshare. But, you know, they pull you into these places. They literally will wine you and dine you, give you free stuff.
Yep.
And then they get you to sign all these papers. And they absolutely explain everything that's on those papers. They definitely 100% explain all of it to you. But you're not listening. You know, or you may be listening, but you're not hearing them.
Yes.
Because they are telling you exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. And then they do it. And then you don't realize you're on 6 months, no payments, no interest. You think everything's being paid for, except you forgot the one key portion of it where the down payment was financed by PayPal credit for $13,000. And you've just gone 6 months with no payments, no interest. And you know what happens at the end of 6 months and you haven't made a payment and there's no payments, no interest? You get hit with every penny of interest. And you had no idea because they mentioned that they were going to finance the payment through PayPal credit. But when they're at the end of the spiel and they're talking about it, they don't talk about PayPal credit anymore. And now I'm calling you up and telling you you owe money to PayPal credit, which you didn't even know was a fucking thing because you thought PayPal was just something you entered your bank info on your computer. That sucked, man. That sucked. But
I know PayPal credit really good because that's how I buy everything right now.
Hey,
all
man.
the toys and everything.
I got to tell you, as long as you keep the payments down, you keep up on your interest, PayPal credit is a great tool. I'll give it that. Mm-hmm. Don't ever fall behind. I will say this, though. Now, I don't know. Things may have changed. Things may have changed, especially since what happened and why I don't work for PayPal anymore. But they used to not report to the credit bureau. So if you ever fall behind on those payments, tell them to fuck off because they don't report to the credit bureau. Or at least they didn't. They may now because...
I think they do now because it is PayPal credit that I go through.
Well, even then, PayPal credit was originally, it used to be known as what's called Bill Me Later. That was the original credit source. Then it was owned by Comenity Bank. And Comenity Bank had
I know them well.
Yeah, they had the, if you ever gotten like a credit card at Sears, or if you were lucky enough to get that GameStop credit card while they had it.
Yeah, it's Meyer. It's my Comenity.
Yeah. So in any case, though, PayPal credit was through Comenity, at least for like the first year and a half that I worked there. Then all of a sudden they sold the portfolio and it got bought up by Synchrony. Things were great when Synchrony was running it and we were there.
I know them too well.
Synchrony was all like, so you guys have these monthly bonuses that you get for collecting so much money and moving so many balances. And then you're going to get a quarterly bonus. So now we're getting quarterly bonuses. So not only am I making like a $1,500 a month monthly bonus, now I'm making like an extra $500 every 3 months. And my team, we always hit that top tier on our bonuses because they were amazing. The collectors that I worked with on my team were phenomenal.
Because you were collecting from the cancer patients.
Oh yeah, like the people I was working with, they knew how to get people to turn money over. I found the money because I told us where we were going to work, where we were going to get the money, but they were the ones that were able to collect it and move it, which is what got us our bonuses. And so we were getting all of our bonuses and stuff like that. And then after about another year, Synchrony was just like, fuck it. We don't need you people at PayPal anymore. We have our own people that do this. So it's a lot cheaper for us if we just pay our own people and not you. Shut down the whole site, laid off everybody at PayPal credit.
Wow.
We did not exist as a product entity within the PayPal structure anymore. Synchrony completely internalized all of it. Customer service, collections, all of it. PayPal used to own 2 big buildings here in our Timonium and Hunt Valley areas. Had the big PayPal logo on the side of the building. Not anymore. Completely gone. Took PayPal completely out of Baltimore.
Wow.
Yep. So there I am again, laid off, no job, nothing. Now, PayPal themselves were fantastic. They set us up with a decent severance package. They worked on trying to help us find new jobs. They couldn't find us new jobs within the company, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But they worked on trying to get us new jobs and everything else. Nothing was panning out for me, though. I thought I got some time to sit and wait on it, so that's fine. I got this nice severance package. I could work on some things. Well, then I started not working every day. Didn't really have a purpose. And that depression that I ignored for a long time finally just really caught up with me. Ended up trying to do some retail therapy. That didn't work. Blew through my severance package that way, though, real quick. Starting to fall behind on a lot of bills. And everything just got dark. Like real dark. Till one day that kind of broke. And it broke me. And I found myself hanging at the end of my belt off of a railing. And it just seemed like the only way out. I was tired of hurting. And I couldn't take it anymore. I said, fuck it. This is what I'm going to do. Everything will be all right. Everything will go on. Just without me, I'll be done. And so I thought, yeah, that's how it's going to work. And it's Thanksgiving weekend, 2019. I said, basically, I used to go to like 3 different Thanksgivings. If there's any reason why I'm so big as it is, it's because I love food. Went to my Thanksgiving with my aunt and my uncle, my family. I went to Thanksgiving at one of my second family's houses. And then I went to Thanksgiving at another friend slash family's house. Basically said goodbye to everybody that I cared about. They didn't realize that, um, they didn't realize that the goodbyes I were saying were my intended last goodbyes. That was it. I said my piece to everybody. That Sunday, my son got picked up and he went back home with his mom. And that Monday, after my roommate went to work, I got to work. And I did everything that I needed to set up and tried to go for it. And I was blacking out, losing consciousness. And suddenly Connor just started flashing in front of my eyes. And I remember fighting like hell at the end of that bell. Even in my best of shape, I was terrible at doing pull-ups. But somehow I managed to fight myself up against the wall that I was hanging near and managed to walk myself up enough to pull the belt so that it was loose around my neck, and then managed to pull it even looser till I could finally get my head out of it. And at this point, like, I'd almost blacked out and lost consciousness. And if that had happened, then I would have died. But my son saved my life. And I immediately got my phone. I called my aunt up because, like I said, my sister, she lives out in Indiana and in Indianapolis. Only person in my family I could think of to call was my aunt. And I was just sobbing on the phone, telling her I needed help. And she was worried as hell, nervous as hell. She called up my other uncle, and they both headed over towards my place because my aunt didn't want to walk in and see that I finished the job while I was waiting for her to get there. She didn't want to walk in on that alone. So she came over with him, picked me up, took me to her house where sat down, had some food, talked about some things. And she basically told me, she goes, well, we're going to get you some help, but we're going to the hospital though, because I can't help you, but we need to get you somewhere where they can help you. So I went to a regular hospital, to their emergency room, where they checked me out, made sure that there was no internal damages done to my neck from how tight the homemade noose was. Kept me under observation for 48 hours to make sure that I couldn't do it again. I was literally sleeping in a chair in front of a guy in a window in a room with a TV. People started to freak out because they couldn't get in touch with me at all because I had no access to anything. To the point where Connor's mom tracked my cell phone, found out it was in the hospital, and she must have lied to the people at the hospital to be able to get through to me, because they can't just tell people you're there. They had to protect that information. But she must have lied to be able to get to talk to me in their forget what the term they used for it, but basically their mental ward, their psych ward at the hospital. They got me transferred over to a proper mental hospital where I was there for a couple weeks, undergoing group therapy, being under constant watch, making sure I wasn't going to try anything. Basically, I was given that time to color pictures, go through group therapy, learn coping techniques, deal with my depression, get on a medication regimen that would balance the depression that was in my head. I managed to realize that I'd suffered from depression for a very long time before it got to this point. And like I said, looking back at it now, I realized there was a lot of self-medication in a lot of ways. There was a lot of things I did that I thought uh, would make me not depressed or make me happy, and just really kind of help, uh, you know, elevate my spirits. And some things did help, some things didn't. Um, at the end of the day, though, I wasn't actually treating the problem. I was treating the symptoms. So now, through continued years of therapy and being on medication, come a long way. I've been in therapy for the past 3 years. Everybody else was freaking out about COVID and everything that was going on with that. To me, I had a very positive outlook at the time because I just lived.
So this all happened before COVID
Right
started.
before COVID, 2019. It was December 3rd, 2019.
Okay.
And I'm getting, while I was in the hospital, one of the few things they let us watch was the news, which I never understood. We couldn't watch stuff like Family Guy because it could trigger people, which I get, but the news was okay because the news doesn't trigger anybody.
Yes, because real life is so much better
Right.
than Family Guy, and
Yeah, exactly. In any case, though, I guess they figured Family Guy would give us ideas, but yeah, watching real life and trying not to be depressed about it, that's crazy. Um, but we were seeing things on the news about COVID as early as December of 2019. So like everybody's all shocked when it's going into March and they're starting to shut everything down. And I'm like, you guys must not be watching the news.
no, it started coming out in December. I remember
Mm-hmm.
a lot of talk.
Especially on the West Coast with things coming in from China and everything like that, where
China,
things were being delayed from China.
Sorry, this still makes me laugh.
It does. It was a very, very funny enunciation of the word. So, um, but it's just, I'm actually trying to find myself again now, as I'm learning to be a more mentally stable human being, because I've realized I've gone through my whole life without that ability, or without realizing that I wasn't all there, or not acknowledging it, rather.
So you basically were isolated before everyone ended up being isolated anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time they went into, I hate even calling it the lockdown because we could still go out with our families and stuff.
I was
But
home by that point. I
yeah,
was home.
but you were already used to kind of being isolated,
Yeah.
and you were learning to cope with it. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Not that I would assume you ever learned to completely cope with it, but you were learning to.
I had this dislike of humanity long before then anyway. So when I found out that there was this whole world outside, but nobody was in it for a change, man, I was all about it. I was outside walking every day, loving life out there while everybody's in lockdown. Because one
I
of the few things they let us do was get out and go for a walk as long as everybody's socially distanced.
it sounds
And
I loved COVID in ways because I did work because of what I do, but the time that I got to spend with my kids and just go do walks and like
yeah, yeah, it was pretty amazing to have those kind of times. I mean, you had it through COVID. I had a couple times of unemployment where I had my kids with me all the time.
mhm.
And that's an amazing feeling when you get that time with your family, because not everybody does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, COVID allowed a lot of people to experience that too. And I think that's something that's really key that I hope people do remember going forward. Take that time, spend that time with your family, spend that time with your loved ones, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
So
And
how did you deal with it going in the cold?
well,
I mean it's obviously not something that
I lost my place where I was living.
okay.
I moved in with my aunt and uncle. Now, it started off as me staying here with them because I couldn't go back to my place, because that's where I tried.
Yeah, understandable.
and I just couldn't be there by myself. So I was staying here. And then as time went on, I just lost that place like right before all the rules went into place where I couldn't lose my place for not working, if that makes sense.
I know what you're talking about.
But the biggest thing was that now all these people are becoming unemployed. Job markets are being sapped up all over the place. And I don't have a job, but I need one. That sucked. Because I was already unemployed for several months before that, you get this gap in your employment. And then that gap was extended because of lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then as people are starting to return to the workforce, and like everybody's like, well, everybody's hiring. And I'm like, not me. They're not hiring me. I was looking for a job all the time. And so I started to kind of backpedal a little bit because I was feeling rather worthless on not being able to get employed.
Yeah.
I'm staying with my aunt and my uncle. They're taking care of me. That's fine. At this time, I'd started getting into toy collecting. So that was kind of cool because Origins just came back out and I had friends who were willing to help facilitate my toy collecting because they know I'm trying to find a job. They know that I'm putting in the work and doing all this. But on the inside, I'm still like beating myself up because I can't get a job. I can't get hired anywhere. Nobody's trying to hire me. And courts are after me at this point because now Connor's mom has been after me for child support. She can't pay because I don't have a job. Finally, she did take me to the court about it. Court said, we can't make him pay. He doesn't have a job, but we can make it so that he has to find a job. And I'm like, well, you don't have to worry about making it so I have to find a job. I'm trying to find a damn job. Like, I want to work. I don't want to be unemployed. So I did end up eventually, one of my old GameStop contacts reached out to me once again, and they're working for a hospital, doing scheduling. I finally get a job again, which is currently what I do now. I've been now gainfully employed for almost a year. Coming up this October, that'll be a full year finally at my new place. I get to work from home, which is a big bonus because I love the commute every day. It's absolutely amazing, especially for somebody who doesn't drive. And, you know, it's always a challenge to get to and from a job, but not anymore.
Can I tell you something? You're wrong because we have a drunk that works from home and she calls in all the time. But when you're the owner's ex sister-in-law, you can't get fired. But I'll be sitting with my boss because she works directly under my boss, and he'll be like, "Yeah, the drunk bitch. Yeah, she called in." I'm like, "Wait a minute. The computer's next to her bed." He's like, "Yeah, well, you know."
Nepotism, man, it's a beautiful
Well,
thing when you're in there.
Basically, she's it's his ex sister-in-law. Basically,
See,
they just keep
that's
her.
the crazy part.
Yeah, it's just like
She
she
got to have
works from
some
home.
dirt.
No, it's just like they know she'll die right away because there's no one to help her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's totally a pity. I'm like, why don't they just pay? Why doesn't he just pay her and just, you know what? Just here you go.
Yep. So, also what helped a lot, especially when things were getting darker again, because I couldn't get employed, I started this YouTube journey. I had started watching all these channels, like, kind of like right around through lockdown and everything else, and started finding all you amazing people throughout various chats, watching shows like GDL, Mega J Retro, um, Toy Anxiety, watching all those guys, and Pixel Dan, stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie, it started with watching Origins news stuff off of Pixel Dan and watching like those
Yeah.
the director's commentaries from Scott Nutlick. And from him, I ended up finding GDL and everything else with the wonderful debate that was. But I
Go
got to
watch the
watch.
debate if you haven't, because I had to watch it. I still
Everybody
watch it.
needs to see that
I
debate.
still watch it every
If
few
you want to
months.
laugh, it's oh man, like I
The
gotta
after show is even better because that's when you realize, like, oh, you were as bad. Like, you guys were felt as awkward as we thought you did.
yeah. So definitely got involved within this community, and then just started to get back to work, and now things have gone really life has gone up in a lot of ways, and really really good. And I gotta say, I'm appreciative of everybody in this toy tube world. Like, when I say it means the world to me that you guys watch me, I used to watch different YouTube channels and be like, man, it'd be cool to do that. I'm like, but who the fuck wants to hear me talk? And now I've got people that watch me sit there for 5 hours. Lawrence, you know what I'm talking about. Every Monday when you're on for like 3 hours, you got people who are watching you from the time you start to the time you end. And you're like, at some point in time, I was like, who the fuck wants to listen to me? And yet,
I still say the same thing. I still, I mean, I know who doesn't want to listen to me, Master
oh
of the
yeah,
Universe people, because they don't watch any of the Master Universe videos that I did. Cobb, they're all yours.
hey, I watch your Masters. When you did your Masters of the Universe collection the other day, I made sure to comment on it because I appreciate seeing that content on your channel.
And so, man, like, listen, there's nothing that brings my live streams to a screeching halt faster than me saying Motu.
I get excited and I tune more in. I mean,
I think it's funny though. It's so funny, but it's anytime I do the Origins like reviews, it's like. But you know what's crazy? I did the I right before we went to Florida, I did the what is that? The Point Dread.
Yep.
And it just went like this. And then all of a sudden, after Florida, and you know what? It started peaking when people started finding it at Walmart and Target.
Yep. Because now people are like, is it worth it to buy it? I need to watch what people are saying about that.
Yeah, it was weird that I'm like, well, this will probably do. It did nothing, and then just boom, 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 boom.
When you can get it out there kind of early like that, you will definitely pick up quite a bit more views as it becomes available. So, yep. Everybody's rolling out now. They were like, oh man, it was great. We heard Oz's story, and now they said Motu, so we're good. We're gone.
That was a very uplifting story, but then he had to go and mention Motu, so now we're out.
Right. I'm done. I'm out of here.
But, so when did you really start down the whole YouTube? Like, when did you first do your first live? Do you remember?
Yeah. We actually just recently celebrated that 1-year anniversary. It was back at the end of July. So, I mean, a while ago, actually, the laptop I'm on now was actually bought with the express purpose of being used to do a YouTube channel, but it was a very different thing. One thing that I'm into is reptiles. I love reptiles. They're amazing animals. And I was into building bioactive dioramas. So it's got all the microfauna and micro, flora in it and everything that you need so that it creates this inner ecosystem that you don't have to get in there and clean a tank like crazy. So I was going to film myself making these things and started working on that. And I never got anywhere with it because, again, with the depression, you eventually start losing this motivation. No matter how passionate you feel about something, you don't give a fuck anymore and you stop caring. But yeah, so as it turns out, I was getting into watching, like I said, I'd started with watching stuff like GDL and watching stuff like Toy Anxiety. Well, I was looking around for some cool ideas because Grayskull was not really out yet. And I was looking up some cool custom sets, custom diorama pieces. And I came across this channel, Skelevator. where this dude was in the process of building a custom fright zone. He had already made a ginormous snake mountain.
Okay, so when I asked you of like last month or maybe even a little bit longer ago that I didn't know who Skelevator was, and you're like, "Oh, I'll send you a link." The moment I opened it, I went, "Oh, I remember catching him because he built that huge
Yeah.
life size." Wow.
Well, not life size, because
Not
that would be a mountain, but right.
not like, but life size to an actual Masterverse figure.
Yeah, exactly. The mountain itself is like almost like as tall
Yeah.
as he is. So um, you know, he had built the first one and he didn't film the whole process step by step when he originally did it.
Yeah.
So then when he got commissioned to do this new one, he started doing that. But before that, I had been watching videos of him building the Fright Zone and stuff. And he would do an occasional live stream where I'd jump in. I was like one of two people chatting with him in his live streams because just he didn't have people there. And then Wondar came out. And I remember watching the live coverage of the Wondar debacle on GDL with Mad Hatter and everybody else trying to get it, couldn't get it. I was one of the few people that got 3. And I say I got it. My friend Corey actually got it because, again, at the time I was not employed. He managed to get me 3. 1 for myself, 1 to remain unopened, and then 1 was going to be used as trade fodder later down the road for something that I may need or it was hard to get, kind of thing. Because I'm not a guy who will just sell a toy. I'm not like that. Anybody who knows me knows I don't do that. The third one was for some trade fodder. Well, Skelly was doing this live stream talking up some stuff, and he had mentioned that if anybody was getting their Wondar, if anybody managed to get it, he would do, if you wanted to record a review of the figure, he would post it on his channel. And I forget who was in the chat at the time, but they had mentioned, I'd said to him, I was like, I'm getting Wondar. That would be rather cool. I wouldn't mind helping you out with that. Then somebody in the chat mentioned that we could do like a co-stream. And they mentioned like StreamYard or something like that. So Skelly set it up and we did the very, very first Toy Frenzy. That was like July 18th of last year. And we talked about, that's right, never forget Wondar 10.
And then people couldn't use it to buy the Wondar.
I still try to use it on their website just to see if it'll go through for shits and giggles. People 20 years from now will be trying to use Wondar 10 to get 10% off.
That will become the up, down, down, left, right for Contra.
That will be of Mattel Creations. That is going to be the Contra code, the discount code.
It's so funny.
To rule all discount codes, Wondar 10. But yeah, so we did this whole, we did the live stream. We were talking, it was right around the time of San Diego Comic-Con. So, they like just dropped that giant Eternia play set and everything else.
Yeah.
And, being able to do that. And like, we had this kind of audience, like people were there, people were watching and having fun. And we decided we were going to do a second episode and people were still showing up. So we decided we were going to do a third episode. As a matter of fact, this is the 1-year anniversary of one of our big guests who actually, it was probably like our first big industry guest. We had Mark Enright of Mortarheads come on this week last year.
Okay.
Where we were talking about the new Masters Universe masks that he had just debuted at PowerCon last year. The ones that NECA is selling based off of the Masters Universe toys.
Yeah.
So that was like our first industry guest on Toy Frenzy last year was this week. So for a couple of months, I was just working with him doing that. I did appear on like Mega J at the time. He had a open mic night, so I went live with him, hanging out with him. And then after a couple of months, I kind of just started getting into doing my own channel. And then I went from there, and here I am. Now you find me all over YouTube. Like if somebody's got a toy stream, I'll probably show up at some point in time on it. Just like Nolan will be in the chat, I'll be on the stream probably at some time. And, just having a blast talking this amazing passion that we all have that I'm so glad I've fully embraced and gotten back into. Because, I think part of that dealing with the depression it really helps playing with toys because it takes me back to a simpler time where I wasn't as depressed. And
it really does. Like,
yeah.
And I think, again, like, there's so many people that enjoy collecting, whether it be collecting skateboards or collecting shoes or collecting toys, but you don't really meet them in your area all the time, especially for what you collect. You don't collect
Right.
G.I. Joe, but you understand collecting, so you tune in. I don't watch as much sports as I used to, but I listen to sports radio because I've gotten to know these personalities.
Yeah.
Well, football's coming, so that's a whole different story. But you get to know these personalities, and you get to like the people that you listen to.
Yep.
So, as you get to meet new people, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe there's no G.I. Joe collectors or toy collectors in my area that want to talk about it, but I can talk to so many people from all over the world, which is awesome.
Right.
And I think it's really weird because it took me a little bit of time with my son when he was super into Minecraft and he wasn't playing toys and wasn't going out. And it's like, he's not even using his imagination. But then you start looking at Minecraft and you're like, it is all imagination. The only difference between Minecraft that he was playing at the time on his PlayStation or whatever he had, and then me playing with G.I. Joe, is that he didn't have to clean up the G.I. Joes. He didn't have to be on his knees. He was still creating, just like I was creating bases and everything.
That is one of the things. Minecraft. So a bunch of my friends were playing Minecraft on their PCs in alpha. So before it ever launched on PC in any way, like even before it was beta testing, when it was in alpha, a bunch of my friends were all in on Minecraft. And they were like, dude, you got to play this game with us. Now, mind you, most of these guys that were telling me this were like, so like I'm 9 years younger than you. They are 9 years younger than me. And I'm like, guys, I remember when those were state-of-the-art graphics for games. I am not fucking spending anything. I'm not playing this stupid looking game. And we're like, dude, you got to play it. You got to play it. And then they were like, dude, and I was like, look, it's a PC game. I don't play PC. I play on console. I'm an Xbox gamer. And they were like, okay. I was like, look, if it ever comes to Xbox, I'll play it. That year at E3, those motherfuckers set me up because that was the year they announced Xbox is coming to console at E3, and they showed it off on Xbox first. And I was like, son of a bitch, because I'm a man of my word. And it came out and I bought it. And I started playing and I was like, this is the stupidest game ever. And then a buddy of mine I saw was playing, a guy who I used to play Halo with a lot. And I was like, dude, what's the deal with Minecraft? Because I don't get it. So he came in and we were playing co-op together and he showed me the ropes. And then I started to realize what it was and how we started doing things. And Minecraft became one of my most favorite games of all time. As a matter of fact, even though I am not currently like a gamer now, I don't actively game. I don't even have a console. I've got Minecraft for Windows on this laptop, and I do play because I absolutely love playing Minecraft. It's fun. And I said from the very start, it's the best Lego game ever because I don't have to worry about stepping on them bitches on the floor. So when you said that your son doesn't have to clean up his toys, I'm thinking the exact same thing. I was playing Legos without having to pick up my Legos afterwards or take them apart or store them or
Yeah,
anything.
and it was a lot of the games that he was playing, and because I hate him being on the video games all the time, and he is, and I do wish he went out, and he's very antisocial, very introverted. But when you watch it, you're like, he is interacting with people. And now when I look at YouTube, it's like, when I'm not just texting people, and I'm not just, yeah, before when I would be in the chats, you're just chatting with people. But I've gotten to know, first you get to know them being on these live streams, and you start talking to people. And then we actually met in person. Like I talk to Tony all the time on the phone. I talk to Matthew all the time. And obviously we do a show every other Thursday. So I talk to Matthew all the time, and believe me, as much as Matthew and I go back and forth. I talk to Ed. But to like meet you guys in person, it's like no one can now say, "Oh, you mean your YouTube friends?" It's like, no, I actually know them in person.
Right.
At least some of them.
That was one of the funny things that somebody was making fun of me for being a gamer and saying,
I even have Mr. Wonderful's number now.
That's right. You've got my number. You've called me on the phone.
No, that was on Instagram.
That was on Instagram, wasn't it, when we talked? But either way, you've still called me.
I'm sure if I asked you for your phone number, you wouldn't be like, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be all like, fuck that. So, but yeah, back when I was doing the gaming thing, I remember one of my friend's girlfriends was like trying to make fun of us. Like, well, at least I go out and I hang out, or what was it? Oh, at least I'm not sitting in a basement just playing video games, and I actually hang out with my friends. And I was like, you mean like when we all play multiplayer together and we get into little chat parties and we're all talking all night long? Well, I actually go out and meet them. And I was like, you mean when we've been playing for a couple of hours and we all say we're hungry and then we all go meet up at a restaurant and we eat, or we all decide we want to go watch a movie or something like that? And like every time she kept trying to say that she was more social, I was like, you mean when you're sitting at home watching the TV and playing on your phone? And completely pointed out like all the introverted, non-social stuff that she was doing. And she was like, how did this happen? And I'm just like, yeah, it's funny. The video games used to be the geeky loner thing, but now it's actually the mainstream fun thing. And you really can't make fun of us for that kind of stuff anymore because what most people that grew up doing the other stuff is now looked at being not as cool.
Yeah.
So of course I had to go like even deeper into the geekdom and became a toy collector again. And really, like, even as there was still this sense of shame up until finding ToyTube about me being a grown adult walking down the toy aisle. Mind you, it's like I'd seen stuff about like Classified and everything like that and everything online. And at those price ranges, looking at those toys, these toys were not made for kids. That was not their intent. It was certainly made for an adult to buy.
There's a couple comments on the Valkyrie that I did where someone's like, they made a comment about having to warm them up, and that's not for kids. And I was like, that's because they may say 4 and up, but they're really adult collectibles.
Right. Because you know what? If you're buying your 4-year-old $35, $25 figure. Well, yeah. We're almost at that point for regular toys. But when you look at the good kids' toys these days, they're still like around $10. Like a good kids' toy is like $10. Cheap. All the new Ninja Turtle stuff that came out, it's like $10.
Yeah.
Those are kids' toys, 100%. They can appeal to the adult collector. Hell, especially at that $10 price tag. For the price of freaking 2 Masterverse figures, I can get the whole wave of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's like the price of a reaction figure.
But yeah, exactly. You know, one reaction figure with 5 POA. You know, there's superposable Ninja Turtle. Heck, if I buy the gift pack, I think can glow in the dark.
So, so where do you see? I mean, obviously, you are pushing out content. Where do you see? What are you trying to achieve with the YouTube? I just kind of I want to wrap it up with like, what do you see? Like, I mean, you're obviously got. I mean, you're on like a J all the time. I believe you've been on Toy Connections. I hear Jay from Geek Dev. But these guys don't know who the hell I am. But Jay from Geek Dev Life is talking about Oz. Oz. I'm like, what the Great Wizard of Oz is the Oz that they filmed here in Detroit, which is the movie studio is no longer a movie studio. It's actually one of our clients that builds weapons and jet engines for the military. So where do you see yourself? Like, what are you trying to achieve, and what are you looking to do with like all the content you create?
Look, I do like 5 hour live streams. There's not a whole lot of going back and rewatching those. I mean, if people want to go back and watch those older episodes, like the first time Lawrence came on the channel and you know, everybody said that he goes for like 3 hours. So he decided he was going to one up himself and hang out with me for like almost 6.
Well, you do know what the first time I joined you was, right?
Oh God, what day was that? Oh yeah. That was prolapse night. We won't be doing that night again. That was a shit show.
The only reason, like you had that open thing, and I'm like, I've never really talked to them. There's been a few people, and I was like starting to kind of set up. I'm like, I don't know if I should or not. You know, I mean, I'm doing my own streams, but I do it on my own. Like, I know Travis, and then that came on, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be worse than that. I physically cannot be worse than what I just saw.
Nope. Anybody coming on, no matter what state you were in, we're gonna look back. Did you cut
that?
Oh yeah, I totally went back and edited that stream.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It would have been taken down if I hadn't. You know, the whole stream would have been ripped off there. But fortunately, I went in, and out of like 5 hours worth of content, I had to look for 3 minutes of content. It was 3 minutes total. The multiple times that I just kind of let that guy come on.
Did you? Oh, I didn't know you let it happen more than once.
Oh yeah. Well, like he came in under different. Yeah. Like the first time he did it, I was like, okay. So from now on, when I invite somebody on, they have to be like here. Like we have to see them. So the second time I invited him on, he was. I don't know if it was some kind of very clever pre-recording or whether it was somebody who was actually sitting there live. But he jumped on and like he was actually interacting, and I made sure to keep him in the green room, like not just drop him in, till I could kind of confirm that it was a legitimate person.
Oh.
And then like I brought him on, and then he started talking about that story and dropped it the second time. And then I'm not even sure if the third time if it was the same guy, but considering I'm not big enough to do, like, I'm not really that big to get trolls. I'll get a sex bot occasionally, but I'm not really big enough that you get people really trolling your content. But that night, he was trolling my content.
Oh, that was because we were just talking about it, and I'm like, I don't know if he's gone back and cut it, but if you can find the first time that I was on, go to where I'm at, and then go back maybe 5 minutes. If it's still there, because I'm like, I came in like right after.
Yep.
Because I was like kind of setting it up, and I'm like, well, I can't be worse than that.
Not at all.
Already, I mean, obviously you saw my name, you knew who I was, so it wasn't like this guy's gonna shit on my screen.
No. You'd been in chats before. You know, like I'd recognized you from ToyTube at that point. Like, you know, so I wasn't worried about you. The other guy I just didn't really know. So now it's no longer like real open mic nights, but
wasn't open your best idea.
No, but I wanted to change it up and do something a little different. And really it kind of helped evolve the show into the format that it's in now.
It was just the most fucked up thing I've ever seen.
Oh my God, it was, dude. There was so much shit. And this pulsating giant red loose rectum prolapse. Like, oh, I'm hoping everybody is paying attention and painting that picture in their head. So you all have to see the horror that I did.
But it would never be as bad as seeing it live.
Yeah.
Allison says he was like,
yeah, that dude was live. He was definitely, the second guy was, it was live. That guy was definitely live because he was responding to things that I said.
Cop says, well, did he have the user? Oh, yeah.
Did he really? I don't.
No,
I
she was
can't.
asking because of the dog shit thing, I think, on the bed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Shit all over that guy bed. Henri was on that stream. You were not on that stream. You may have been in my chat. You weren't on that stream. You were definitely watching. I do remember that. Yeah.
Because I don't remember who else was on.
Oh God, it was.
Allison
was a pretty big. That was like I think the first night that I ever hit a total of 10 people. Because at various points people were jumping in and out. Like I know Ken came on at a certain point, but it was shortly after one
Ken
of the times. Yeah, Ken had missed it.
That was the first time I had interacted with Ken. Yeah. Allison, I think, came on either right before I did or right after I did.
No, because she was live when that dude dropped the shit. Okay. Yeah, she was on stream when it happened.
Maybe she went on and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go on and.
I think that was also the first night Thanos ever showed his face, and he was on the channel that night.
He should have snapped that away. Of all the things he could have snapped, he couldn't snap that.
Right. So there we go. Allison's got the lineup. She was saying it was us, herself, Eldor, Cobb, Ken, Chris. Aaron was there. I remember Aaron being there. Brick and Adam both showed up a little bit later because we were telling them after it. And yeah, like it was just a whole lot of us just hanging out. And like I said, it was really that was the night where I really decided, you know what, this was a lot of fun, even with Shitface here. That
a great story. Even though
it definitely does. I go down in YouTube history for having the toy stream with prolapse. So, but that idea of having the mega stream with all these different people coming on and just having this free flowing hangout conversation, it's set it up for what it is. So I love doing those type of streams. I still planning on having that every Saturday night. I'll pretty much pop up on almost any channel that really wants to have me because I do enjoy talking about toys. I have fun sharing with other collectors. And it doesn't have to be all about like Motu, like a lot of my fan base, the people who view my content because of where it started with everything is Motu driven. But I'll still show up to a Transformer stream. I'll still show up to a G.I. Joe stream. Like, because I just enjoy the toy passion.
And I think a lot has to do with if you like the personalities. I watch Toy Anxiety, but they talk about a lot of shit. Like, I hear Turtles and I'm like, but when you're interesting in how you guys talk, or not you, but whoever,
right?
I'm interested in the stories that you're telling. I know people get tired of me hearing. I think John and Jay on Geek Dead Life, they have amazing chemistry. And no offense to anyone that has filled in for them, it's just not the same without John and Jay. And there've been some wonderful people that are filling in, but there's just not that chemistry like those two have. They know each other so well in real life and the way they play off each other. And you can tell that it's not fake. When I watch Toy Anxiety, I think 4 people, that's enough, in my opinion. You get more than that, then people are stepping over each other. They do such a good job. And then it helps that you have Abby and Craig in the same room looking at each other. So it's like, they know when not to talk for the most part. And then you have Dole just doling things out. But some people, it's like they fit really well. But I watch channels of people that I have no interest in what they may be collecting, but I have an interest in what they're saying.
Right.
It's the same as a TV show or a talk show that's what you hear. And I assume I assume people maybe tune in to hear G.I. Joe stuff and stuff that has to do with military stuff with me. But obviously,
Yep.
there's other people tuning in just because they want to hear rambling. But if you go and look at the comments on the show from last Monday, one guy said 3.5 hours, I'm out. Another guy says 5 minutes into this, and it's all this rambling. Do you see the show name?
Did he not get the title?
I
What part of
literally
that did he miss?
I can't say anymore. Like, it's literally right there.
See, at least you get comments. I don't get comments, but that's because the people who are watching my content, they're basically all in the chat.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, so like I don't get a lot of comments on my content because everybody's there. Do I expect a lot of people to watch it in the replay? No, because they look at the fact that it was a 5-hour stream and they're like, I don't really like watching that. I do have a lot of people who will put it on and listen.
Yes.
While they're working and stuff like that. And they do tell me, they were like, dude, I like the fact that you guys keep me company while I'm at work because I just listen to you all talk for the fact that I'm 5 out of 8 hours of somebody's working day. Man, hey, I remember what that's like because we used to listen to the morning radio while we were loading up a truck.
And then you get to know people's voices, so you don't have to be watching them.
Nope.
But I'll tell you what, like my streams, I mean, they're going over 3 hours now. I can't believe that. By myself.
I blame a little bit of me. I encouraged you that people will pay attention for more than 3 hours.
Well, what's funny is when I asked if I should go 3 hours, the poll came back no. And I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. I kind of did the Bobby Valla. He did what color do you want the Vanguard? He didn't like it. And he's like, well, I'm going to do this one too anyway. I kind of did that. Like, should I go 3 hours? Almost everyone said no. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not making you pay for it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's
you don't want to watch
free.
it. Don't watch it.
It's free.
But I do find, like, when I have a topic, more people watch it on the replay.
It's true. Yeah, because they're interested in what the topic is.
And you'll see people, if you're watching the whole 3 hours, people tune in and they're like, oh, have you talked about the topic yet? I'm like, dude, it's like 10:15, man. We still got an hour before we get to the topic, and I'm trying to rush through it.
Yep. You know, but that's how it goes sometimes. You know, like here, you and I, we've been going for 3 hours, and this has kind of been about my life. I never thought I'd sit here and talk to people I talk to my therapist, you know, once a week, but, you know, I didn't think I'd be talking live to people for 3 hours about my life. But here we are, you know, it just is what it is. And as long as the conversation's flowing, people hang around. People want the chat, you know?
And that was always my biggest thing. Like, before I started doing this, and I believe I talked to Matthew about it numerous times, but I'm like, again, I listen to a lot of sports radio. And Jim Rome and Dan Patrick, I think, are two of the best. And they've talked about it, and they're like, the best interviews are conversations, not interviews. But sometimes you have people that it's like pulling teeth to get them to talk. And my biggest fear still doing one of these is getting someone on that I haven't really spoken with that much and finding out that they don't understand how to communicate in a format like this. And now it's all left up to you, and you have to figure out, all right, if this isn't going to go well, we're going to have to cut this to like just over an hour. Or is it one that's going to go 3 hours like this one is going? Where it's like, you have to learn how to play this. And I said this to Chad numerous times, articulated Chad. I'm like, I love how you do your interviews because you lead people, like, you know the answer that the question you're answering, but you know not everyone listening knows it. So you're asking it and you're leading that person in to tell them that story. And that's such a good interviewer because now you're getting the story that you wanted to tell. And I'm like, that's how I want to do my stuff. I want to be able to pull something out and then just kind of let whoever's on do what they need to do. And I know Ed, I think it was Ed, I've talked to a couple people. Hey, how do you think it sounds? How do you think it went? And I know Ed was like, You didn't make it all about you. There's a lot of people that do these interviews, and I feel like I'm making it about me now. But
no. Well, look, we went from childhood to what I'm doing now with YouTube. We've covered me. If you want to make it about you now, I don't care.
Believe me, everyone knows about me. And if someone
That's
wants
right.
to know about me, then they can ask me to be on and ask me stupid questions.
Or watch. People can tell a lot about you from 3 hours of rambling.
I would assume so.
You kind of pick up a few things.
But I think I told you, like, either you or maybe Tony last night when I was talking to him, like, people don't really know my story. Like, they don't know. They know what I tell them, and I'm a very open book.
Right.
But I don't, like, if someone wanted to have me on for something like this and want to ask me the questions, I have no problem answering.
Yep.
But I don't go into what happened to my mom. I don't hide it, and I don't go into, like, what?
I was going to say, there are very few things that I really won't talk about. Like out of tonight, there was only one portion of my life where I was like, we're going to omit that whole chapter there.
Which shocked me, but we're going to leave that so everyone's wondering now what it is, but I was just surprised you didn't mention that.
Like I said, I took out a portion of it because there's just a section of it that I don't like to talk about within those years. So I leave it to
understandable. And now everyone right now is going, what is this?
Hey, Mr. Wonderful's got it. The super kick party. I just went around super kicking everybody. Shawn Michaels style. Because I know controversy.
You know what, Travis? Next year, if Ken comes to PowerCon, we have to do some sort of booth. We'll have, like.
There's no if. He's coming.
Yeah, I got to look into that. And I can, my son's graduating. He'll be going to college. So it's like, can I make it there for a whole weekend? I'd like to do Joe Fest, but that's 8 to 10 hours away, But I'm like, I can do at least one day, I would assume, unless if, like, it's moving. But I'm like, hopefully I want to do a whole week. Not a whole week, but a whole, do all 3 days.
Next year I'm definitely going to be doing all 3 days of PowerCon. I'm not skimping out and leaving before Sunday because I missed some good panels. And honestly, that's why I got sick, because I wasn't there for Sunday. That's what it was. Everybody who stayed through Sunday, I didn't hear one of those people get sick. I got sick because I left for Sunday. That's what it was.
I was on my way home. I stopped at the rest stop. And I woke up, and it was 2 hours later because I looked at the GPS and what time I would be home. And it was like exactly 2 hours later. And it was, I'm like, I didn't think I was going to sleep for 2 hours. Boom, just back on. And as I'm driving in, lights coming up. Get home, let Roman out,
Yeah, man. Well, that's the greatest part. Like next year, I mean, I can definitely plan it a little bit more in advance. I got a whole year of planning to do for next year. All of us can, because everybody who went this past year, when we all met up, like something happened. It was just like one of these things where it's like we all hang out, we all do these streams, we talk, we hang out, we have a good time with one another. But actually meeting and getting to do this in person,
that's what was fun.
It was just, it was way more fun than waiting in line for the exclusives. Like, that was cool. But the best part about it was while I was waiting in line with people, getting to know them. Like, Emerald Knife Photos, John, like, we were walking around pretty much all weekend together. Like, that was great. He's been one of my biggest viewers from the start. So, like, that was incredible to have him there. Being able to meet so many other people from recognizing him in the chat. Mega J is the one who helped me kickstart my whole freaking YouTube stuff between him and Skelly. And, getting to meet him in person was huge. Meeting you, Travis, Hella Dope Toyz, meeting all those guys.
Yeah.
Like, that was fantastic.
If I wouldn't have bought anything, if I would have just driven there, spent $37 for the ticket, the $20 for the parking, the $100 for gas round trip, it would have been worth it.
Yeah.
Because it was just, and again, I was only in there for 8 hours and I was gone. But it was fun sitting there, shooting the shit with you guys, going to dinner with Travis and Aaron, and Ted,
And then
realizing, wow, we're not the nerd convention here. Wait a minute, we're not the ones at the nerd convention. We're in the cool kids convention.
I show up and I'm like, man, there are a lot of cosplayers here for PowerCon. I didn't realize like this toy convention was gonna have this much. This isn't a Comic-Con. This is just PowerCon is a toy place. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. There's something else going on here because this is not the whole convention center we're taking up. So there's like anime cosplay thing going on there too. I was like, okay, all right, this explains it.
It was pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie. It was
and there was
we sat there at the bar, and I didn't realize that there was a whole nother convention. I wasn't paying attention to that. These people that I saw cosplaying weren't in the PowerCon because I was staying pretty much. I didn't walk through the other stores that were selling stuff. I was just looking at the booths, and because I was only there for the one day, and Ed and I went and we sat down, and ate some pizza, and we walked around and looked at stuff. It was like I didn't realize that there was a whole nother convention going on. So yeah, it made it very, very interesting. For sure. So now is Vintage Motu punk rock CDs?
Yes, Vintage Motu is punk rock CDs.
I have started following that because
also,
as you might imagine, he listens to a lot of music that I listen to.
He does. He listens to a lot of great stuff. He's been bringing up bands that I'd forgotten about. And it's fantastic because then I'm like bringing up a song I remember and all like that out of nowhere.
He had Naked Ray Gun the other day, and I was like, such an underrated band.
Yep.
Such an underrated band, and I got to know it through skateboarding because of one of the Santa Cruz videos.
Yep. Well, for those of you in the chat who don't normally see Toy Frenzy, Vintage Motu is Bobby, also one of the co-hosts of Toy Frenzy. So good to have you here, brother. Glad you could make it over. I guess the fact that you're here means the Toy Frenzy is over for the night, so I'll have to go watch the replay once I'm done here. But of course, any stream I'm on's got to be like 4 or 5 hours. So,
well, this is not going 5 hours.
No, it's not. I still got to work in the morning. This ain't one of my nights where I can just keep on.
Even though these steroids have me like,
right?
I don't need to sleep for the next 23 days.
Yeah, brother. I ain't going to bed.
So pretty much, like, is there anything that you have plans on doing with the YouTube? I know you do your...
I do plan on trying to get into a little bit more pre-recorded content. I do plan on networking again more with, people like Geek Dad Life. I know I've texted him now a couple times, Jay. We're going to try to set something up. Haven't spoken to him in a bit, but that's in the works. I know more recently, the Toy Anxiety crew, Craig mentioned that they were interested in possibly attending a Legions class, which is a monthly show that I run on my channel. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do the next class this upcoming weekend. Now I know they've got Dragon Con, so it's not going to be this weekend, but he said they're going to circle back and figure out, because I'd mentioned it in the chat when they were talking about getting into Mythic Legions, when they were talking about the indie toy developers. So he said he wanted to learn more about it. And I was like, I invite you guys to Legions class, just figuring it would get lost in the chat. But he brought up the comment and he was like, I'd be interested. So I sent him a message. And who knows? I don't know if the entire crew will be joining Legion's class, but that'll be a pretty epic show when that happens too. I mean, I've live streamed with Dole a couple of times between Toy Frenzy and just hanging out with him on other streams. So I've even gone live with Craig on TKO before. But I really enjoy just, the idea of watching so many of these channels a year ago, like around this time. And now going live and hanging out and talking with these people. And it's like, holy crap, I was just somebody that may have a comment brought up in the chat every now and again a few years, like last year. Now it's like people know who I am and they recognize me. Holy crap, what a difference a year can make.
It does, because, I know, again, I don't, I started doing a show and I did the show on my own. And I know for a fact, I don't know for a fact, but I know that I'm not asked to be on a lot of shows because I don't ask other people to be on my show. But that's not my show. My show is just, somehow I can go 3 hours, 3+ hours, according to Ed. And that's kind of why I started doing this, because I'm like, you know what? I mean, I told you the whole thing. Like, hey, you know what? I want people to see people that are helping support me. So
right.
When I'm hearing from other people, they're like, people know who you are, and like a lot of people respect you. I'm like, do they? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not stupid to sit there and say I don't realize how many people are watching the show and interacting on Mondays. But I hear from numerous people that are like, oh yeah, like all the guys over in Geek Dead Life, like in their Patreon, like they all know who you are. Like, they're asking about like what's in your background, where you got that from. I was talking to someone today and they're like, yeah, a few people were saying like, yeah, it's kind of rough on the outside, but he's a really good guy. I'm like, well, that's nice to hear,
Right. Yeah,
I'm
like the
I'm
first
just who I
time.
am. I'm gonna be myself. I always have. I have no reason to hide, who I am, because I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. But
well, maybe, but
okay.
You call me a shill all you like. I take it as a compliment.
I do have stuff to sell if you guys 3D printed.
He's got
stuff.
merch.
I got merch. Yes, I do. I guess you're right. I do.
I'm working on mine. He's got merch.
Yeah. But yeah, it is weird. Like you start, you just start to get to know people, and
yeah,
it is just networking. That's all you can say. It's just you start networking, and people get to know who you are. Yeah. I was talking to that at Boss Fight Studios at PowerCon, and he mentioned, and he's like, "What's your channel?" And I told him, and he's like, "I've heard of you." He goes, "Do you know Chris McLeod?" He goes, "Do you know Chris McLeod?" I'm like, "Well, I know who he is, but I don't talk to him." He's like, "I think he's mentioned you before," and I was like, "Oh, wow, that kind of shocked me." But Chris McLeod works.
Right.
I do. I mean, I don't know if he works for Boss Fight Studios, but his wife does, and I know he does work with them. So, but it wasn't one of those like, it didn't come off as, those people that'd be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of you," and you're like, "Dude, you have no idea."
Right.
You never heard
of
my channel.
No idea who I am.
Don't even say that. You're not helping my ego. It's already huge. Don't worry.
Right. You got to compensate. The ego's big.
As Ed says here, who's telling those lies about you being a good guy, Punk? We need to straighten them out.
Hey.
And we'll
let them know.
Weeks.
That'll be great. It'll be good. Man, I gotta say, Ed was another one where it's like, just recently, talking with Ed through the chats, and then recently with him doing his channel and getting to see him and Luke. And now he's been coming on my channel a bit more. Like, gotta say, like, just it's so amazing meeting so many of us. And that's why I'm looking forward to next year's PowerCon, because now I think after this year, with the spark of excitement and how much all of us have talked about how great of an experience it was to meet up with everybody, it's got more people interested in doing it and actually being like, you know what? So PowerCon doesn't have Mattel backing it anymore, and they don't make those big drops. First off, all these really cool kick-ass indie toys are there showing off what they got, and they get some spotlight, which is phenomenal. But also, all of these amazing people that, again, just like this right here, sit down, can have a conversation, get to know people. We get to know everybody from the chats. Like, so many people were walking up to me where it's like, they don't even have a channel. They're in the chats. And
Yeah.
I'm like, Oz, man, I love watching you on Toy Frenzy and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, it's great. Who are you? Because, like, again, all we see is a name and a thumbnail. And most of the time, that thumbnail is so small, you cannot tell what it is. And so,
Or you
like,
think it's someone else.
right. So, like, you got to ask them, like, look, I need you to introduce me to yourself, and don't even bother telling me your real name. Tell me your name in the chat, because that is how I'm going to be able to recognize you.
I
Then
sometimes
you
think
can
people don't
introduce me.
realize, like, I don't see your name.
Right.
Like, if I wouldn't have known who Mr. Wonderful is, and he's like, hey, I'm Travis, I'd be like, who the fuck is that?
He signed
Oh,
up.
you mean a Toy Kind of Mood? You look nothing like Travis Moody.
Right. It's like, Travis, who did this, that, kind of thing. I found out Travis's name because he had signed up as a patron member. And I'm like, it was one of the first times I was doing that paid for kind of after show. So I wanted to make sure the invite went out to everybody. And I'm like, who the is this person that signed up for me? Who are they on IG? I don't recognize them. And then it was like the next day or so, like he mentioned, oh, this is Mr. Wonderful. I'm just like, now I know. Okay, cool. So let me add you to the different chats and everything else.
And I often, I say it all the time, like, if I'm in Geek Dead Life or the Full Force, like, people are like, hey, Lawrence, what's up? And I'm like, how many people are going, who the fuck is Lawrence? There's no Lawrence here. Like, and especially like Geek Dead Life or Toy Anxiety, where there's 500 people or 300 people.
Right.
Like, these people are looking, it's like, who the hell are they talking to?
That's the funny thing. Like, after I know somebody on a more personal level, I tend to use their actual name and not the screen name. Fortunately for me, like, my name is part of my screen name. So, like, it works, but it's not the same for everybody, though.
Nope.
So, I mean, if we're in those bigger chats, I'll start referring to you as a punk with toys. So people be like, oh, he's talking to a punk with toys.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, those guys, they talk, they network, they know each other.
And also, it's one of those things is like, when someone that is popular in one of the chats is referring to you by name and not tagging you, everyone's looking at it going, wait a minute, who are they talking to? And then they're trying to figure out, like, who, like, you're going through it, and you're like, all right, oh, he must be talking to this person, Like,
right.
Because we've all done it, because we're like, who the hell is John?
We got to be careful, too, because then you got people with the same name.
Yes.
Like,
there's not that many Lawrences.
There's not that many Lawrences. Yeah. Fortunately, there's no other Oz's out there that I know of. And if there are, I got to kill them because there can be only one. And so, like, but when we've got Black Knight, Aaron, and you got Payne's Toy Samples, Aaron, if I'm saying hi to Aaron.
But you know what? I don't ever refer to Payne as Payne.
It's true. It was up until more recently I did continue to call him Payne long after I knew his actual name.
Yeah, I don't ever refer to him as Aaron. He's just Payne.
Same thing with we got John Emerald Knight photos and John figuratively speaking. We've got like 6 different Adams, 5 of which are from Canada. So, like, there's got several different J's.
And they're all doing streams on the same stream together.
Right. It was last year. They had Jay Bartlett, Mega J, and Jay from GDL in one stream. So I did the Spider-Man meme, and I just went to their IGs and Facebooks.
Jay Bartlett on? I know they had Mega J and Jay.
Yeah.
Jay Bartlett on too?
Yeah, it was all
3 one time they had 3 J's, but I can't remember the third J.
Yeah, it was Jay Bartlett. I got the meme that I made for it. Sent it. It was actually, like, I think one of the first things I ever sent to Jay Gladfelter was that meme. I sent it to all 3 of them, of course. Because it's Spider-Man, and it was the Hot Toys version of Spider-Man doing the meme.
So you were spamming GDL.
I wasn't spamming. I was only slightly cyber stalkering so I could find the most ridiculous looking picture of his face.
All right, buddy. I'm about to let you out. Okay.
Yeah, it's about that time because I'm starting to feel that nicotine fit.
I'm getting the eyeball.
Like
Like,
I
dude, you
need to
sit in the
go.
house for like 10 hours while I'm at work. You
No
can.
problem.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
me. I could sit here and do a 6-hour stream, and not have to really get up and go to the bathroom maybe once or twice. But I
well,
tell
I'm
you,
going to
any
go for
other
like an
time,
hour and a half, 2 hours.
yeah, like there are times I gotta go. The only bad part about going this long is I know when I get back out there, the coffee pot's gonna be cold, so I gotta reheat coffee to refill the cup. Because yes, it's midnight and I'm gonna drink coffee before I have to go to bed and get up for work the next day. Didn't you see I just hit a steroid? So
Yeah. No.
I'll be fine.
Well, I think this is where we should wrap it up. I do want to say thank you, especially thank you for sharing what you shared. Um, I hope that it was help. I hope for you, like that was helpful. I mean, I don't know if you've talked about it on other
Not so
shows.
candidly or openly.
Well, I do appreciate it, and I'm glad that you feel that open that you could speak with me and whoever else, and hopefully, like you seem to be in a better place. Hopefully, it helps someone else out that needs it. Because, as I mentioned, like I've been depressed, but I've never suffered from depression. They are two
Right.
different things, you know. Um,
They
so
are.
I
There's
do want to
difference.
say, thank you for sharing that. I wasn't expecting that. So, but before we do leave, is there anything that you would like to promote other than your 18-hour stream this Saturday?
Well, yeah, I mean, so going live for like 1 billion hours on Saturday because I'm adding more hours to the day so I can stream longer. And as I am a
Thank you, because
wizard
I
with the
need that
Wizard of
too.
Oz, right? Like we need that for Mondays. Nobody ever wants a Monday to be longer. I'm making the workday hours shorter, folks, and I'm going to make Lawrence's stream hours longer so everybody can enjoy it more. Okay, that's going to happen. It's in the works. I'm a wizard. Um, and I'm certainly going to extend the hours for my stream as well. But yeah, definitely we'll have that coming up this Saturday. I don't think I'm supposed to be on anybody's stream unless somebody throws me an invite, then I'll probably be doing something else. Because I always I just really don't say no when people ask me to go live with them for the most part. I tend to hop
And
on and hang out with people. So
if
as
I'm
long as
home
I'm
and
not already booked.
not doing anything, I'm like, all right, why not?
Yep. Yep.
And then I get the echo, and I'm like, I'll bolt because sorry about the echo, guys.
Yeah, we all know that feeling. Like if I come on and I'm causing technical issues on a stream, I'm just gonna drop out because there's
Yeah,
no point for me being there.
unless it's my own stream, then you guys have to deal with it.
Deal with it for 6 hours,
All
27 hours, 57 Batman and Todd McFarlane time.
right. All right, so we are going to wrap it up. Thank you to everyone that stuck around for over 3.5 hours.
On a Thursday night, y'all are champs.
Yes, and some of us got to wake up in a few hours to go to work. But hey, you know what?
I'll be there.
I can sleep in on Saturday. Oh, no, I can't. I have to help someone move.
We got a 3-day weekend though.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
at least I do because of the this.
Well, I do
way
too.
back.
But if I'm lucky, there'll be a whole bunch of stuff from Taiwan coming in, which means I'm going to lock myself in my room when I'm not helping my buddy move and do reviews.
So I posted a picture this past weekend of a mail call that I got in. I've gotten a couple of other mail calls I haven't posted pictures of because I'm still expecting some more stuff to come in. So I'm kind of like just waiting for it to all filter in now. But then I found out some news today that people were getting shipping notices for Snake Mountain from BBTS.
I saw that.
So I'm wondering whether I should wait until that comes in and do massive for everything. I don't know. There is the possibility that if more stuff shows up by tomorrow, since I'm doing Legion's class on Saturday, I might kind of do an unboxing hangout tomorrow night, which is what I would normally do on a Saturday night, but I've got no idea what I'm up for. We'll find out last minute when I decide to do it 5 minutes before going live, and then I send the link out to everybody and say, join me.
All right. Well, if you have not subscribed to Oz's channel, get over there and do it. So where can they find you? Let everyone know before we get out of here.
So Ozstradamus Toyz on YouTube, at Ozstradamus Toyz on IG. If you can manage to find my Facebook, it's not too hard. I'm on there, but that's actually got my government name on it. And then you can find Ozstradamus Toyz on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is this week. You can find me on that. So,
all right, guys, take care. See you all on Monday. And if I get stuff in from Taiwan, you'll see me all kinds of times over this weekend. So.
Russian equipment, American equipment is all made in Taiwan.
Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful night.